God, I did a lot of cocaine earlier today. Oh, we're live? I'm kidding. I didn't do cocaine today. I just did chocolate chip cookies. How you all doing? Oop. Uh, shit. I'm listening to myself.
Oof.
Anyway, like I was saying, we are having a conversation, a live stream. Usually I do a produced video today, but we're going to be talking a little bit about this report that came out. That's really a hit piece that has the whole of our neck of the woods of the YouTube community a buzz. It's called Alternative Influence: Broadcasting the Reactionary Right on YouTube. It's a report written by Rebecca Lewis, who's associated with an NGO called Data and Society. An interesting little note: one of the one of the people on the board of Data and Society had a Twitter spat with Jim, and shortly thereafter, Jim's channel went down. Coincidence? I don't know, but you tell me. Anyway, Data and Society did this report, or Rebecca Lewis did this report, and full disclosure, I reached out to both Data and Society and Rebecca Lewis personally via email and via Twitter to invite them to participate in the stream to discuss this, and I have not heard any response. And I emailed them I don't know, about 12 hours ago. So they've had plenty of time to look over that invite, and no response is response enough, I suppose. So anyway, I'm joined in this discussion by my three distinguished panelists. They are Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, is an up-and-coming YouTube channel, and he does law-splaining, and he is exceptionally smart. So obviously, he's going on to bigger and better things from, slumming it with us peons. And then there's Dave, the distributist, who is, as you know, a trad Catholic, and he's been around for quite a while, and he's a valued member of the YouTube community. And finally, Aidan Paladin, who is the big brains of the operation, and I'm ceding the word to her first to give us a little bit of an overview of this whole thing. Aidan?
Yeah, so, Dr. Lehman did a really good breakdown. So a lot of what I have to say about the report, you could also go see it in a more clearly defined format in Dr. Lehman's video coverage of it. Essentially, first of all, I wasn't actually able to find where Becca Lewis is a PhD student. I also emailed her to try and get access to the data itself, because the big problem here is that, more than anything else, with the methods, is that there more or less aren't any, at least not in any kind of clearly defined form. In terms of what she says in the report, she says that she conducted some sort of content analysis, or implies that she says specifically, I analyzed the content. To me, that says content analysis. She says that she did this by looking at video titles, at the people who were involved with other people in the videos, and what the content itself was. Again, this describes a content analysis to me. The problem is that there is no evidence of a content analysis. So content analysis is a form of qualitative research, which is conducted by, generally speaking, using code phrases or words or repeated trends within any kind of data. So you can do this by, you collect interviews from people, you record them, and then you transcribe them and find how many times a certain phrase pops up across different participants. So an interesting analysis that could have been done here is what I just described, an actual content analysis. That would be to look at, for example, when Sargon is on a stream with Richard Spencer, are they agreeing or disagreeing? What instead she actually forwarded in this report, via what I can see from the data that are available and based on what she says from her methods section, is this was just a frequency analysis, or frequency network analysis. So all it is essentially seeing how many times certain people interacted with other people. That makes it a guilt by association network analysis, in other words. A competent network analysis of this type would have included content. So that means it's not just, is Sargon talking to Richard Spencer, but is Sargon agreeing with Richard Spencer? The end result, when you do a mere frequency analysis, such as been conducted here, is you end up with our output, which is a web of people who are related in that they often disagree more than they agree. However, it's being presented, and it's clear from the rest of the report that there is a political agenda here, and that's really all that matters. She claims that she watched hundreds of hours of videos, yet provides us no evidence. Again, were this done competently or properly, we would have a data output, a statistical analysis that says this is how many times someone used the word white or used the phrase ethno-state, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have anything like that. So it's almost impossible to make any kind of definitive statement about what happened. And because this is not published, I'm sorry, just because it's not published in an academic research journal, there's actually no obligation for her to provide data. There's no obligation for her to respond to my email request for the data or to provide any actual information.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that really unifies all these people is that they are opposed or dismissive of the mainstream media. Would that be an accurate assessment?
I would say the only thing that connects them is they've spoken to each other.
That's the only, her methodology is only an AIN. It's only an association network. And so, I mean, I guess I'm looking at this and wondering what the scientific claims actually are. It just seems to be association. And then she tacks on some kind of political, this is why this paper, in my mind, it's incredibly not academic. And I was actually surprised to see it being treated like an academic research paper, because they have like a very tertiary analysis that any computer algorithm could do instantly, and then they have basically a political conclusion tacked on at the end, and that's the entire thing.
And we don't even have the data to show how she conducted the network analysis, because if she was just taking a random sample to look at this, or if it was actually cohesive and encompassing analysis that would take all titles, all appearances together, there's no indication of this. We don't have the data. And again, I sent that email 2 days ago and haven't heard back. So we'll see. Of a request for the data, I mean.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it strikes me as this diagram strikes me as plausible, but even if it's accurate, it doesn't communicate anything. It's not. Yes, precisely. What it's attempting isn't even meaningful for the point she's making politically. All she's showing here is that, well, I mean, we're basically, this is sort of like high school. So this is like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Exactly. 6 degrees of Erdős. Yeah.
Yeah. It's facile. I don't know what, I mean, then she goes on to sort of extemporaneously talk about these people, and you kind of get the sense of her political opinion, but that's not saying anything scientific. You're juxtaposing the simplest possible network analysis you could possibly do with this data with political claims, and it goes into a report that is not academic. And then I guess I'm going to re-ask the question, who's the audience for this?
That's a good question, isn't it? I think the audience is it's got from the intro, it's got a strongly overt, we'll say, social justice appeal. She's very concerned with the notion that all of these people use very evil techniques to subvert social justice, and so what I'm guessing, she's just trying to talk to left Twitter about the people they need to look out for. I mean, that's the best summary I can come up with, because it doesn't seem to have any value, as you guys are saying. There's no scientific value. There's no data. The data, if you pay attention to her words, the data is literally her suppositional opinions about what people represent and what that means to the people watching them. There's no one thing I would add is in her claim of analysis of watching hundreds of hours of video, not only does she not link who's agreeing with who's disagreeing with who, she doesn't have any data about what the audience is agreeing or disagreeing with. She's merely making some linear assertion of the number of hits that these people are receiving on their videos with their level of agreeability, but there's no tangible link to the agreeability of these people with their hits. It's so, for example, if if I, who have a small YouTube channel, were to get someone like a Carl Benjamin or a Richard Spencer, either side of the spectrum on my channel, I would get a big boost in engagement with views, but that wouldn't necessarily lead to agreement from my audience on either of those two people. So there's no analysis in that way either. It's all just it's a fluff piece.
Yeah,
Well,
and actually, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying you can tell if just to structure it here. There's like 5 chapters in this and an appendix, and all of the methodology is in the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes on to essentially 4 additional chapters that have nothing to do with the methodology. And I read it very terse. I didn't see a single reference to the methodology to support any of the points that come up in the subsequent 4 chapters.
Well, the biggest problem there is, and what Nick, you just brought up is the big issue, is that, as we've said, this is at best a very basic network analysis that was done probably using a basic computer algorithm. I've never done a network analysis, so personally, but this is not complicated research. It was probably just done by counting the frequency of things and putting them together into a graph. Her assertions as to what that means are beyond ridiculous because they're not based on any extant data themselves. Normally in an academic research paper, when it came to try and describe or understand our findings, we would base them on existing research. That's how we form hypotheses, right? Her assumptions are not based on any extant research in the field of media psychology. So, for example, media psychology effects we find consistently over and over again rarely exceed 0.3 in terms of correlation between different variables. They tend to be very small effects. She is suggesting, and Dr. Lehman pointed this out aptly, a hypodermic needle effect. Hypodermic needle theory is a very, very old theory that was thrown around in the early 1900s that media injects into you ideas and thoughts, but that actually ends up being quite inaccurate. The only things that we know about media that have large effects are agenda setting, which is a correlation of 0.98 between the things that we watch and the things that we think about, but not our opinions. So, for example, as Nick mentioned too, it might bring a lot of eyes to your channel, but it doesn't affect your opinion on anything. The only media theory that has any support behind it to show some kind of like long-term effects and particularly exacerbating effects of radicalization are things like cultivation theory and the mean world hypothesis or mean world theory. Instead, what we would actually find is that people have these strong parasocial relationships with the people that they watch. So if I go to, say, I don't know, Sargon's channel, and I watch him debating with Destiny. If I'm on Sargon's channel, I probably agree with Sargon and not with Destiny because I'm there on Sargon's channel in the first place. It also provides a sort of inoculation effect, which is that YouTube creators can inoculate their audiences against opposing arguments. And because we like the person who's giving us the information, we're more likely to agree with them. It's very rare that people actually change their opinions because changing your opinions requires admitting fault or error in the past, which creates cognitive dissonance. So she is making a conclusion based on that is not only based on nothing. It's actually antithetical to the existing wealth of information on media psychology.
Does she make this claim explicit? I know we've only had this document for a few hours, but did she make that claim explicitly? The strong hypodermic effect.
Yes, essentially, if you go through and read the entire thing, the overwhelming argument that she's making is if you watch Carl Benjamin, then you will be exposed to Richard Spencer. And when you are exposed to Richard Spencer, his ideas will supplant any you already have. This is maybe not so strongly worded, but that is definitely the argument being made. That if you are exposed to Richard Spencer, then you will become like him.
Well, she's making the argument by inductive inference. She's not like stating it outright, but she's like leading you to it, and you're going to have to be the horse that drinks that water. But it seems to be that that's what she's saying, because I never actually saw her say it, but it seemed to be her presupposition. The other thing I found really odd about how it was written was that there was this this odd way. She didn't think that influencers had risen up in the ranks because they were articulating what the audience believed in. It was more that the influencers were there telling their audience what to think. it was a very top-down approach, which I found a little bit bizarre. Did any of you guys see that, or am I just talking out of my ass again?
Well,
No.
I mean, the thing is a disorganized mess, but I mean, the problem is I just didn't know how to read the document. I mean, it seems like it's more or less a reflection of how mainstream media views alternative media, but beyond that, I don't know. Anyone else see that?
Yeah, I actually saw exactly what you were saying. And the interesting thing, and that was I think why she included the SEO aspect of it. And my note for page 31 is does not understand SEO, because she's talking about how these channels, these influencers use SEO to catapult their message. And she talks about specifically how if you look up, I guess, keywords that would traditionally be associated with progressive ideas, like if you look up social justice, the top 10 results for social justice are right-leaning sources being critical of social justice. What she fails to understand is that how SEO algorithms actually end up working, to my knowledge at least, which if I'm wrong on this, please go ahead and excoriate me. But is that a big portion of it is where the click stops. Right. So if you type social justice and click on a video and then watch to the end, that gets a much stronger SEO pull for that video for the term social justice. If you click on social justice, watch 10 seconds and click away, that actually is a negative on the SEO unless the video is extremely short. But so what's interesting about that is it's reflective of what people are wanting to see, not reflective of people being brainwashed by some master technologist who has figured out Google's categorization algorithm. The way people get promoted and the way people's audiences grow is because they're saying things that people resonate with in some way or another. And that's how the SEO boosts channels, at least. And that's how personal credibility, that she goes over and over about how weird that is. But that's how personal credibility works as well. If your audience builds up trust with you, they want to see what you have to say, whether they disagree or not, or agree.
Yeah.
They at least are finding your the information you're providing compelling in some way, even if it's to argue with you.
Yeah, because there's at one point that she argued that there was a distrust of the mainstream media, and she cited the fact that 14% of Republicans, only 14% of Republicans, trust the mainstream media. But she posited that information as if it were like, the people are wrong, the Republicans are all wrong for thinking.
Coach, do you want those statistics on that actually?
I don't care. I mean, I'm sure.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I have read that report. It actually found that it's something like 80% of, I think it's like 85 to 90% of everybody does not trust the media sometimes.
Yeah,
so
well,
the data say everyone distrusts the media a little bit.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is that, see, she acts as if distrust of the media is just some like weird thing that's happening, and she doesn't address that, and she doesn't think to herself that we alternative influencers, and I'm glad I am an alternative influencer. I'm like dead center of that idiotic little web. I feel so like I felt like the belle of the ball. But anyway, that idiotic notion that people distrust the mainstream media is sort of like, it's posited but not explained, and therefore it's not explained that the alternative influences are going into a vacuum created by the mainstream, who are not responsive to a large segment of the population because of neoliberal economic policies that have left white working classes behind. And she seems completely blind to that. But I have to repeat, what struck me was this top-down vision she has of institutions, of mainstream media, and how the like a blindness to the bottom up. Because she really, I hate to grind over this fact, but she really seemed blind to the fact that people like what we're doing, and therefore they watch us. It's not that we are controlling them or throwing Coach Coin their way to get an audience. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's actually her argument. It is that, as she starts out, is that, well, she even says most of the people who watch these creators start out as libertarians or or slightly right-leaning conservatives. Her fear or concern with this, and hence why the ultimate sort of suggestion is for YouTube to deplatform all of us, is because someone like Destiny is as likely to introduce people to these ideas, and for some reason the public is such a tabula rasa, empty and waiting vessel for new ideas, that the conservative or the slightly right-leaning conservative or libertarian will then become a full-on, Sieg-hailing Nazi by just listening to the words of Mike Enoch in debating and disagreeing with someone that they watch who's more libertarian or center-right.
I think this gets to what the audience and what the point of this document, I don't even know what to really call it, is. This document is designed to sort of bolster the narrative that the media wants to have concerning alternative voices, and particularly alternative right-wing voices. They want to play a game of, they want to essentially project or portray this as a contagion effect, so that they can indict one or two members of the of a right-wing community, say like Richard Spencer, who I think is more or less on his way out anyway, and then they can use that to indict pretty much everyone else who participates with that person or not. I remember contacting a few people from the mainstream to try to get interviews, and having them turn me down because I appeared on Andy Worski's channel to debate the existence of God. They didn't care what I said. All they cared was that I had appeared with him, and this was the effect that they were looking for, to essentially discount me from what they would ordinarily have agreed to talk to me about.
Yeah, and just for the audience, Distributist is of course a believer in God, so it's sort of like absurd. Yeah, I'm just the purpose of it. Let's go. We're all in agreement. Just to clarify here, that we're all in agreement that you, distinguished panel, are just much more capable or competent in this issue than I am. That as an academic paper, it's just baloney, right? So the issue becomes, who is this written for? And I'm going to put up right now a list of the people who fund Data and Society, so that our audience, can get a gander as to what's going on. So what do you guys think is the audience? Nick, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I think it's I hate to use the buzzwords, because if we use the buzzwords, we're in the paper. But the social justice or outrage community, and I think the point of it, honestly, is to push into this narrative that Aidan brought up, that YouTube needs to deplatform the dangerous gateway, the gateway drug that is any of our channels that might eventually lead 6 Degrees to Richard Spencer. That's because that's the entire thing, is that these channels are allowing a platform that will eventually lead to a radicalizing voice that will convince children to go against their parents and do all the mean things. So to me, it's got to be, that's what I'm thinking, is it's those people out there who will read this, think it's an academic paper because they're treating it that way, and then use that to bolster their online bullhorn on Twitter and bombard, I guess, the YouTube executives.
Yeah, and just just one real point on the academic nature. Again, because this isn't published in a journal, that means it is held to no standards of publication. So it did not go through peer review, certainly not double-blind peer review, which is the norm for the social sciences. It was not looked at, and I'm not saying our journals are very poor in many ways, but it didn't reach even that level of scrutiny. This is not academic on the face. Just an aside, sorry.
I was gonna say, I think the audience for this is lawmakers. I think the audience for this is lawmakers and people in the legal profession, who I think, perhaps not during the Trump administration, but I would imagine that during the next Democratic administration, we start seeing tort law expanded to include damages for basically getting harassed online, basically expansive anti-bullying laws at the federal level. Once the Democrats get back into power, which they inevitably will. And so I think that this document will be used as the spearhead, both for the legislators to consider when they're putting together anti-bullying legislation. It's also designed as a signal for real academic sociologists to coalesce around a certain narrative, at least in the softer side of sociology. And I think that that combined, this will be, well, I don't know how important this particular document will be, but documents like this will become the first step in trying to get anti-bullying legislation to bring the harder elements of the law down on people who are dissident voices online.
Yeah, well, my thinking is that the takeaway really is that graph of all those names. I think that that's the issue, because look, frankly, it reads like a target list of people who ought to be shut up. As you're seeing on screen, dear chat, those are the people who are funding this particular operation. And as you can see, a lot of them are affiliated with the press, with the traditional mainstream. You've got the Ford Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates, the ACLU, the Sloan Foundation, the New York City Media Lab. They have a vested interest in protecting the mainstream media, the established media, and therefore it seems as if this is just serving them up a hit list of people that they should go after. Deplatforming, demonetizing, ultimately censoring. It seems censoring and repressing. It seems that is the ultimate goal of this list, because it is a list. I mean, in Appendix A, it's a short description of each of the major or more notable alternative influencers, right? And then Appendix B is a list of 65 names and 81 channels, and it just seems perverse to me. But you got to work with what you got. That's what it seems to me. You guys agree?
That's obviously the point. I would say about the future academic research, you will get crap that's going to come out that's based on this, or that's in the same general field. But something Layman pointed out, and something that I think that I agree with as well, is that this is actually something we should be studying, these kinds of networks, but studying them in a competent and scholarly manner, not in this haphazard manner. I don't actually know, I don't know this person. I can't even tell where she goes. She's getting her PhD at from my
I can give a little background on that. From what I understand, and I could be wrong, I understand that she got
she has an MS from Oxford Internet.
Oxford Internet,
Research?
which is part of Oxford University. It's not like something out in New Jersey, someplace like that. It's like from the real Oxford in England kind of thing. And
Sure.
then she's apparently, from what I understand, I could be wrong, but she's also a PhD at Stanford. So
Okay,
if that's
Stanford?
if that's the case, then she's got, number one, incredible academic credentials.
Program, but I mean,
and number, I mean, it sounds, Oxford and Stanford, you don't get more big brain than that, at least on paper, right? And number two, if what you guys are saying that this is, sloppy at best and pathetic at worst, then, this is the state of elite education, right? Because
no, this isn't on the level of things that I published as an undergrad. This is not sloppy at that point. This is intentional. You don't get to be, really not if you have a background at Oxford and you're at Stanford. I don't know that much about Stanford's comm program, but I have known people from there, and you don't get to be a PhD student at Stanford and have this kind of level of analysis. That's why it's not published in a journal, why it's being published in a privately funded nonprofit.
Yeah, so then obviously it has a political aim, right?
That seems unquestionable to me. My point, though, is that what will happen is that research will be conducted on this in earnest. We will do content analysis, and we probably will not find anything that looks anything like the network she presented. It will show stronger connections between certain people who are opposed to the alt-right compared to those who are, more on the quote alt-right, whatever. That's an honest analysis. This is why I think one last thing I wanted to point out about the psychology of this is that it's interesting that while calling for deplatforming of all these people, because there's an interest in these counter mainstream ideas, you're actually going to create more interest in them. It's the Streisand effect, psychological reactance. And most interestingly, because you have effectively angered everyone on every side of the argument, it exacerbates and compounds that effect. nobody agrees with this report. That's why I'm actually not that concerned with it in terms of its effect immediately. But you're right. Long term, people, e-distributors, people will be lawmakers will be looking at this. I bet, even though it's complete bunk.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be what you're talking about is we could do proper network analysis of this, but I don't think that a crafted law is going to reference some kind of network theory idea,
and no one will look at it. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the idea once you get the thing is, law has to operate on very simple heuristics, and once we enthrone the idea that association can lead to culpability, which is essentially what this report's building up to. The idea that we're going to bring on some like third order interconnectivity concept from network theory to build into the new anti-bullying legislation of 2022 is just not going to happen. I mean, we're going to be using the old concepts of association, which in the online world means that, well, basically, if we use the old school notions of association in the online world, the association by guilt will spread out like a disease, and you will have this sort of cooties effect where dissident voices will have to be shut out due to concerns about liability for larger actors in the media environment.
So you're talking about a new form of McCarthyism, guilt by association, kind of like, ooh, you talked to this guy, so you're an evil Nazi too. And that's basically McCarthyism. Am I to understand you correctly?
McCarthyism would be a huge step up from this, because McCarthyism was going for people who were actually affiliated with actual political parties and people who were trying to help them. That's anti-intellectual, McCarthy did, but what we're talking about is way more paranoid than even that. We're talking about, you spoke to this person, we don't care that you spoke to them even in an adversarial sense. It would be like saying basically Nixon was
you're talking Khmer Rouge level then. That's what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, it's sort of runaway paranoia. I don't know if this will actually come to a head. But what I imagine will happen, and this is a prediction, but what I imagine will happen will be that reasons for runaway paranoia will be given partial support in law, and then they'll be selectively applied where institutions that arbitrate that law are concerned. Sort of the way we have a lot of the rules concerning terms of service on YouTube or on Twitter, but this time when it comes to actual legislation and actual potentially lawsuits. And that's what I'm afraid of. And that sort of behooves people in power, is to have a vague standard by which everyone is guilty, and therefore selectively prosecute people they think are being particularly troublesome to them. For instance, to give you an example, if we use the same methodology, right? Mm-hmm. and insert it into our study, Christy Winters, you'd probably end up somewhere on fairly connected on this graph.
Yeah. Yeah,
but that would mean anything,
is a Nazi.
Right? But here's the thing: people like Kevin Logan and Christy Winters and anyone can talk to radical figures. Bronx Blogger, yeah, Bronx Blogger would certainly end up with huge connections to everyone, right? But the people who are in charge of administrating this stuff, if we ever do get some kind of consequence, it will never rain down on people that they see as broadly supporting them. It will only come down to people they think are being problematic for their political ends.
Yeah. Listen, by the way, let me interrupt a little bit to welcome our newest guest. It's some black pigeon who showed up. Who's that? Speak up, black pigeon. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going okay.
Yeah, it's late as hell where you are. But for those of you who don't know, Black Pigeon is a great friend. He's been a big supporter of my channel, and he's in Japan. So thanks for joining us. What do you think of this whole thing?
I'm only going to be on for a few minutes. I just wanted to sort of stop by because I said I would. I just actually finished up doing some work, so I thought I haven't been able to listen to the feed and all that. I kind of came in when you guys were going through the donors and the patrons of this data society, and I think you might have gone over some of these groups like the New York Times and Open Societies and George Soros. I don't know if you have or not.
Yeah, I did. But let me just put it up again for the listeners. Right, and I'm sharing it with. Take
a look at who's in these groups. You've got the ACLU, you've got the New York Times, you've got Open Societies. Open Societies is, everybody knows, George Soros. So you've got like this George Soros character and these same groups of donors. They end up on these ridiculous sites that constantly put out paid hit jobs on people in the alternative media. And if you actually start going through the first page of that, I don't even want to call it a study or a report. I just call it a hack job.
Yeah, I would agree.
I was going to say that everything in there is basically under the rubrics of if you question anything about the radical far left and radical far left progressivism, you're somehow and some way you should be depersoned off the internet. And for example, like everything that isn't far left is somehow societally dangerous. And even if you do have left ideas in a numerous spectrum of positions, it doesn't matter if you disagree with feminism. There's something wrong with you, and you shouldn't be allowed to, expose people to these ideas, because if you expose people to an idea, somehow, they're too simplistic to be able to think for themselves, and they'll become raging hate mongers, frothing at the mouth and wanting to put people into concentration camps. The whole thing was ridiculous.
Well, what I found most troubling was on the very first page of this thing. I'm talking the first page. At the very bottom, it says, and I'm quoting, "In a media environment consisting of networked influencers, YouTube must respond with policies that account for influence and amplification, as well as social networks." It's basically, it's basically like,
Right.
YouTube, wake up. Yeah, I mean, what the hell?
Deplatform these people.
Deplatform.
If you go to the very top, to the executive summary, the first paragraph, this woman not only contradicts herself, but makes herself completely leads. Okay, I'll read a little bit of it. At the very top, it says the report identifies and names the Alternative Influence Network, an assortment of scholars, media pundits, and internet celebrities who use YouTube to promote a range of a range of political positions, from mainstream versions of libertarianism and conservatism, and then it goes all the way to overt white nationalism. Content creators in the aim claim to provide an alternative media source for news and political commentary. They function as political influencers who adopt the techniques of brand influencers to build audience and sell them on far right ideology. So in the first paragraph, she says they come from a range of political positions, from mainstream versions of libertarian and conservatism. And then toward the end of the paragraph, she says to build audiences and sell them on far right ideology.
Well, right. That's the whole argument, is that it's a gateway. It's a gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the marijuana for the meth, right?
I'm a gateway drug. Am I any good?
The other thing I just wanted to bring to attention, and I'm not trying to hog the conversation. It's just that I'm staying on very long, is if you go to the third, sort of the second bulleted point, cultivating an alternative social identity using the image of a social underdog and counter-cultural appeal. And if you actually go to the study itself,
right,
and you read this, there's a whole section on this, and literally, we were just going through. Coach was showing the donors that these people have. I mean, could you go back to that, Coach? They must have at least 50 separate donors of people like Microsoft, the New York Times, and a host of others. And
I was surprised to see
saying that they're trying to cultivate, we are the underdogs. I don't know how many.
It's what she's angry about is, again, I don't think she's stupid. Okay, I think this is very intentional. I think she understands what a parasocial relationship is, and that the reason why that she's decrying this relationship that people build as being honest and being counterculture, because that is attracted to people on some level, yes, but also it's counterculture, and when you hide things, they become more attractive. She's also seemingly saying that there's something wrong with the personability of these personas. However, that is why they're popular. And it's not a bad thing. It's because people are sick of the mainstream news that lies to them bold-faced, that is full of people that are fake, that's full of people who are just corporate shills, who are paid for by, a big list of corporations just like this, and are not legitimate people. So yes, people who come out here onto the internet and present themselves as individuals or as personalities are more interesting to listen to. And that has to do with everybody from PewDiePie to whoever.
Makeup channels, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the weird thing because she kept criticizing the normal strategies that content creators use to up their profile, as if and we were like doing like something evil, like we were like we'd like crack the code of YouTube and we're like spreading Nazism but with SEO and all the rest of it. It was absurd to me. You know what I mean?
Another thing that's interesting. I'd like to put this out while you're here for a second, Pigeon, to you as well, and everybody. Did you guys not find it interesting? Not so much who was included on the list, but who was not included.
I found that very interesting. Where is people like Kevin Logan? I mean, he's been on. I mean, I find the man
Ryan Falk,
but he's on all his ContraPoints.
Yeah,
all of these sort of
Ryan Falk. That's interesting.
They talk about things like, for example, that you're going to be indoctrinated with Richard Spencer, but what about Louis Farrakhan and other like Black nationalists? Tariq Nasheed. I saw Tariq Nasheed on an Andy Worski stream debating not Richard Spencer.
That was actually on Baked Alaska's, and it was Jared Taylor. Yeah,
Jared Taylor.
Okay,
Yeah.
On one of those internet blood sports one. So where is the Tariq Nasheed? The man is an avowed Black nationalist. I don't see his name on there. I don't see Louis Farrakhan's name on it. And the little Black Hitler, Ghazi Kodo, or got the big
Ghazi Kodo.
Okay, I don't know who that is.
I think that's the issue.
I hadn't heard of these people, but I think that what it is that basically these are the people that Rebecca Lewis is afraid of, or thinks that her side ought to be afraid of. See, nobody's afraid of Louis Farrakhan or Tariq Nasheed, who's the latter day Louis Farrakhan, right?
But I think that Kevin Logan, that's obvious.
Come on, you can't be afraid of that potato head. But anyway, the point of this. I think that she's afraid of them. I think that's the issue. That's why it's a target list. It's a hit list. Okay. I thought it was really interesting, Aiden, that your name wasn't included because you're essentially the same field as she is. Am I correct?
I'm in the same. I'm in the same field. I am in the same position in terms of being a PhD student, and we share the same first name. Isn't that odd? So imagine my consternation at this entire report being so ridiculous for science.
A lot of these connections they're making just aren't true, because one thing is I don't really generally hop on these streams very much, and I don't do it with very many people.
No, you're on the other side of the planet. You just physically can't.
So I'm almost never on these things, but he's somehow connected me to JF Garipe, which I've never interacted with him.
You did. Do you know?
I did
on this channel with Coach. Remember?
That's you did on my 10,000 one.
That's I guarantee that's where that
train wreck of a stream where it was like boring as hell,
with 50 people on. Yeah.
There's Kaylin Robertson. I don't know. I know I talked with him on Twitter.
No, that's
DM.
Millennial Woes, right?
Well, no. I'm connected with him as well, Kaylin Robertson. And,
I'm sorry, Kaylin Robertson.
Not Colin, Kaylin.
Right.
Works with
the guy who's working with Lauren Southern. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I talked to him on DMs on Twitter, but that's it. I've never had even a public conversation with him on Twitter. All of these people, I guess JF Garipe. I mean, I didn't even remember that. Who else? I mean, but the thing is I'm fucking mentioned like a bunch of times in this thing, like I'm some sort of like, mastermind. And I think this is how these things work. So what's going to happen now is they've come up with this concocted, paid for hit piece by people like George Soros and the New York Times. And now it's being quoted as though it's somehow intellectually reputable in things like Wired, in things like The Guardian, and it's getting spread all around that this is and they've done this to me before, and I know other people as well. Like I had some hit piece written by a guy who used to be the communications director for the Bernie Sanders campaign. Obviously that didn't work out too well. He had to find another job, got a fellowship at Harvard, and a 4-month fellowship, got paid $35,000, wrote a paper about me, got picked up by the New York Times, and then suddenly it's all legitimate, and it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And these things are, I think, like you guys were just saying, they're written for the one reason is to basically put targets on people's heads. And the reason they're doing this is because, we've gotten rid of Alex Jones, the biggest fish in the pond. Now we can just start going after the littler ones. And the thing is about that is people like us. I mean, it's going to be a lot harder for us to like fight back. And even he lost. And the thing is it's like they literally do not want any kind of argument. They do not want any kind of people even being able to have a different opinion. And the reason they do is because the left is very, very important for people to understand that they have nothing to gain from conversing. They have nothing to gain with entering the dialogue. They have nothing to gain in the marketplace of ideas if their ideas are challenged, because they do have supremacy within all of the organs of the state, within media, within the academia, within almost every conceivable organ. These things are literally entrenched. And what do they have to gain? If they have absolutely nothing. So this is why, for example, I even was listening to I've been listening. I've actually, just because of this Sargon and Kraut is returned and all the drama that's involved in that. I guess you would know about this, Aiden. But he's like, they're talking. I was listening to the Kill Stream today, and they had some leaked audio from another one of his drama infested conversations.
His gay ops. Call them by their name. Gay ops.
The thing was that was really telling, and it was very obvious, was because they were talking about, and some guy who had a little bit of rationality was saying, the problem now is the left they were talking about Tim Pool and how he's like,
he's a fascist. Lauren Southern is a fascist. Everyone's a fascist.
But that's exactly it. They're just a fascist, and the thing is we won't talk to them because they have a different political opinion than we do. And this is why, because they don't really have the arguments to back it up, and this is why they have to go around, create these ridiculous fucking things masquerading as journalism, and not journalism, as research, and then they get hunted by these far left rags like the Guardian and like Wired, and then they just, even I think I read at the end of the Wired is that, we must hold these social network responsible for these kinds of explosive and I don't know. So I just wanted to throw that out. Where the fuck is Kevin Logan? I have seen that guy on Sargon. I've seen him on.
Everyone's
come on. It's just part of the gay ops of the left that they're trying to fuck over people.
Hang on, this is really interesting. Something I just noticed by zooming in. Now, this graph is terrible, and it's not clear, just like everything else. But I realized something zooming in on your node, Pigeon, is that the only other connection that you have is to V. It's not Kaylin Robertson. It looks like that, but again, it's messy.
Let me share it with the audience.
You must have talked to V at one point, but everybody else that you're connected to on this list, Mr. Medicare, Coach Red Pill,
I've never talked to Mr. Medicare.
Yes, you did on that stream. Everything,
it's all my fault.
Your entire position on this is based on that stream we did a year ago.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
that's it.
Remember
why
when I hit the here
holy shit.
Man. I'm the cause
you
of your
better apologize, Coach.
Oh man.
Every person that you're connected to on this node is somebody that was on that stream.
Okay, well there we go.
Right. There we go.
Great science, that
well,
really.
Anyway, I showed. I don't know if you guys saw it. I made a mug out of that stream. I shared it before while Black Pigeon was talking. I don't know if I assume chat saw it, because it was a high point for me. I got into 10,000 subscribers, and all these YouTube big wheels were showing up in my stream, and my stream turned out to be boring as fuck, which is pretty funny. But yeah, and that seems to have been the thing. Damn, man. Rebecca Lewis.
Yeah, look at everyone that you're associated with. It's from that fucking stream. That's it. Yeah. Again, this does not indicate to me a comprehensive network analysis. This is. I looked up a couple things.
It's goddamn.
Well, you guys mentioned Alex Jones, and I mean Alex Jones was only recently deplatformed, but if she was doing an analysis of alt-right influencers or whatever, the alternative influence network, how do you leave out Alex Jones and InfoWars, who would have been during the window that she laid out for her hundreds of hours of viewing?
No, because nobody was involved with Alex Jones. Alex Jones is his own little universe. He never showed up at any of these shows. Never had any contact with any of these
Alex
channels.
Jones though has talking to Stefan Molyneux. He's talking to Paul Joseph Watson. He's talked to
Joseph Watson works.
A few of them.
Yeah.
But
he's also talked to. He's got to have talked to Cernovich, right? I would think. He had James Damore on InfoWars, didn't he? Or
Yeah.
I might be making
Yeah,
that up.
Yeah,
Gavin,
he did.
Roman Millennial has been on. A whole ton of these people.
And
We have Milo.
he was on Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah. Oh yes, smoked weed in a hilarious segment.
Oh, Nick, I think it was basically that it would have been an easy trick, no trick at all, really, just yank him after he got deplatformed to refocus her report, and maybe it was rewritten. Maybe Alex Jones played a relatively larger role, but she just refocused it to this current crop. You see what I'm saying? I mean, just updated the thing.
Oh, he's already been depersoned, so we can ignore him now.
He no longer exists. He's in the memory hole.
Well, the thing is, see, when Andrew Anglin got showed, pardon the pun, over with Stormfront and that whole thing, right? And everybody said, oh, this is the first one, and others said, oh no, you're exaggerating. He's the worst of the worst, and they're gonna leave it at that. No, then it came to be Alex Jones's turn,
First they came for the Nazis.
First they came for the Nazis, and then for the fat guy from Texas, and now they're coming for us, basically. I mean, shit, I'm looking at this thing and I'm right smack in the middle of it. Okay. And I find it funny because for me, this is a hobby. This is for fun, right? I don't really care if I have a YouTube channel or not. I mean, sure, it's flattering and all that and the attention and all the rest of it, but it's not really important. And more to the point, I don't earn a living out of it. But a lot of people here, a lot of the names I'm looking at on this network, they most certainly do. And this basically is a hit list to start deplatforming and killing off channels and wrecking people's ability to earn a living. I can see like Tim Pool, for instance. Oh, by the way, sorry to point this out. She put particular emphasis on Patreon,
and super chats, and how super chats allow people to say racist things.
Yeah. It was the super chat and the Patreon, and Patreon was outside the scope of YouTube. Who gives a shit? If people send money your way, but clearly it's to emphasize that, and I find it incredibly frustrating.
These platforms are also compromised. I think it was just recently, probably 2 weeks. If somebody could correct me on my time frame, maybe I'm wrong. But Robert Spencer, not Richard Spencer, Robert Spencer from Jihad Watch was deplatformed from Platform, not because of anything he'd done, but because
no one's talking about that.
Said that they would pull their ability to be the ability of PayPal to use them as a payment service if Robert Spencer was allowed to remain on Patreon. Now, like, what does the guy do? He basically, all he does is analyze
just collects
the
information.
hadiths and the Quran, and what he does is he uses it to interpret groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda and other far extremist Muslim groups. And it was like they're like, oh, sorry, guy, we don't mind, but MasterCard says you're not allowed to use our platform.
And that's the scary thing, isn't it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing that went relatively unnoticed in this whole shutdown thing, the whole internet blackout, but I think was the most important turning point, was when Maker Support had to essentially renege on its payments and its payouts to its supporters because, of all things, Stripe, the API, would essentially pull their support from their project. This sort of gets rid of the entire libertarian argument. I think Black Pigeon, you must have pointed this out. I think you did point this out earlier than I did. The whole libertarian argument goes right down the tubes once Stripe, once MasterCard, once the infrastructure support essentially decides to not only cooperate with an attempt to black out YouTube and alternative voices, but actually is the instigator for the censorship of these alternative voices. Once that happens, we can't start our own MasterCard. There's no way. There's 6 years of financial regulation. You'd have to have like 4 billionaire benefactors. It's a ridiculous proposition. Once that happens, we're essentially talking about our only avenue being a political counterplay.
Yeah, I used to hold the libertarian position at first, and then came to quickly understand that under these circumstances, it's not viable because we can't create our own Visa, we can't create our own PayPal, our own MasterCard at this point. That's just not a possibility. We can go create BitChute, go create Gab, and that's great, and I support that. But the fact of the matter is that when we can't control the entire system down the line that all have political agendas to silence us, and they do, then it's not a viable option.
Hey, sorry to cut in, Nick. I want to ask you, as the single lawyer here who would actually know this, couldn't Robert Spencer? It's Robert Spencer, I believe, right? Couldn't Robert Spencer sue Mastercard or Patreon or somebody? I mean, doesn't he have some sort of legal redress whereby essentially the monopoly supplier of a crucial service is denying him service for no apparent reason or a capricious reason or a free speech reason? Isn't there a way for him to get legal redress for this issue?
So I've been wanting to kind of get into this as we've been talking about law, and because I thought of this later when Distributus was bringing up some of the legal aspects and the potential legal goals of this. But I'm going to answer your question, but let me do it in a lawyerly way.
Take your time. By the way, you want one full Coach coin or just a fraction of a Coach coin for this? I'm teasing, Fred. It's a meme. I'll explain later. Go ahead, please.
So the way these everybody, I'm going to say everybody who is online has the ability to unassociate or unplatform anybody is through the Communications Decency Act, which was written in 1996. Or last updated in 1996, prior to the explosion of social media. And the intent, if you read Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, was to basically allow bulletin board services and up-and-coming internet web pages to remove things like child pornography, to remove extreme gore and extreme violence, but they have this catch-all phrase in there, or otherwise offensive material. Okay, and the clear intent was either things that were completely illegal or were depictions of things that were typically illegal, like murder or rape or something like that, which, obviously violence isn't illegal to see, but it might be promoting a violent act. So anyway, that was the intent of that. But they've been using this shelter of the otherwise offensive material to include speech. And this is how everybody does this. So currently, under the current understanding of the Communications Decency Act, there's no way because these guys are given immunity by Congress to make an editorial decision under the influence that it's not editorial, or under the impression that it's not editorial. So, they're just removing offensive content to protect themselves from liability. And if they're making a good faith effort, then it's okay. So there's not really a way for Robert Spencer to sue, because MasterCard will just say, look, we can't be associated with someone who is going to alienate 1 billion potential customers through Islam. He can just go ahead and use Visa or American Express or Discover. He can use one of these other payment processors, just not our service, because we see it. And of course, it ignores the affiliation that MasterCard has with Stripe. That would then be how they do funding through Patreon and whatnot. And this is what I've been talking about a lot lately, because, you have the libertarians coming out saying, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequences. And these are just how the free market works. And the first illusion is that we have a free market in any of this. We have all sorts of government protections being provided to these companies, Communications Decency Act being a huge one. And I'd want to point out again, because I don't think people understand, that the Communications Decency Act was intended to protect internet service providers and broadcasters of various types, but it's been expanded to literally anyone with an internet connection, where people can post content. And then to their extended networks, again, getting all the way to something like a MasterCard. So I think, kind of going back to this point, that maybe that's just the aim here, is we don't necessarily need new legislation. It's to let people know that we have an association to extremism here, and here, and you have the ability to cut off offensive and extreme views under the Communications Decency Act. You'll be protected if you silence these voices. Let us just give you a list of voices that need to be silent. that's what's been ringing out to me through the past 10 minutes or so through all of this conversation is they already have the tools to silence everybody. They did the same thing with Alex Jones. Alex Jones has not posted anything that has been ruled to be illegal. He's got some defamation cases outstanding, but even those are tenuous. And so they go with the general offensiveness of what he says because they have to protect the sensitive ears of their viewers or whatever. But no, short answer, no, there's no legal recourse for him currently. There really needs to be. The Communications Decency Act does have a good faith requirement. It just hasn't been applied because, again, this thing was written before there was anything resembling the modern internet. So there's that.
Sorry about that. I had muted myself.
No, I mean, no, like it was.
We're sort of stunned.
We're all waiting with bated breath, like to hear your take on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, and I want to. There's something I've been wanting to get to on kind of going back to some of the underlying things in this paper, the themes that this person plays on page 16. If you'll give me just a second to read this paragraph, listen to what this says. The following sections outline 2 key ways the influencers and the AIN differentiate themselves from mainstream news as a way to appeal to young, disillusioned media consumers. The first way is by rejecting traditional news media norms for building credibility and trust in favor of the norms of participatory culture. These influencers explicitly reject the trappings of institutional prestige, adherence to objectivity, and neutrality, and the enforcement of gatekeeping mechanisms that dominate mainstream news media.
Objectivity.
Right.
Sorry.
Adherence to objectivity and neutrality, as if that's something that CNN or NBC or Fox or anyone has even pretended to do. And more importantly, the media history of at least the United States, if you go back to the 1800s and read newspapers, there's no such thing as objectivity or neutrality. These are openly opinionated positions. And what's funny to me is that basically they've taken the past 40 years or so of major news media and the image that they've tried to create and try to retcon the entire history of media that came before it, which was individualized, it was localized, it was hyper partisan. I mean, Alexander Hamilton started the New York Post or something like that, and basically used it as a weapon. So this idea that the alternative influencers network is doing something new and dangerous is silly. It's actually, we're getting back to the older method, and listen to the things that they say, that the inference is that the old is good. The media, the mainstream media is the good method, and that the alternative influence network is bad. It's not explicitly stated here, but that's the overall thrust, is that instead they build trust with their audiences by stressing their relatability, their authenticity, and their accountability to those audiences. Like as if any of those 3 things would be bad to deliver a message to someone. It's only how communication has been done for the entirety of human history. You build credibility by being relatable to people, by being authentic, and then by being accountable when you're wrong. And of course, the contrast is that there is no accountability with major news networks. And it just blows my mind that this is how this whole thing has
think back
developed.
to the incubator stories for the first Persian Gulf War. You had the daughter of the Kuwaiti embassy giving testimony to I believe it was a Senate inquiry committee.
Yeah. All
maybe
the Kuwaiti babies were like
all the
out the
Kuwaiti
incubator.
literally, and all of them got on board. This story was reiterated by George Bush's father, the first George Bush, as an explicit reason for the invasion of Iraq to happen. And it turns out this girl was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador, and she was coached by a PR firm. And like all of these mainstream news organizations went lockstep and started reporting this, and they never actually even offered retractions or apologies for, oops, guys, sorry for baiting our country into a war and building up. You know,
they've done
bloodthirsty
every
I mean,
time.
like look at Gulf War II. I mean, that was just all bullshit. And at the time, you know, the New York Times and all the other mainstream media was just cheerleading it along, like, oh yeah, let's have another war with Iraq. What the fuck? Why not? You know, I mean, it's a new millennium. Let's have it. What?
The science of persuasion is well understood, more or less. I mean, you know, people are individuals. That is true, and you know that I'm not necessarily far in the super individualist camp. However, this idea that there's something wrong with being persuasive is absurd. We've been studying persuasion for a long time. Robert Cialdini, I don't know if you know him, Nick, if you've ever read On Influence, The Science of Persuasion. It's both versions. He has a new one he just put out like last year that includes a new aspect, but it's reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, consensus, and then we added humor, sort of. So basically, there's these same general principles that make people like others. And something that, as I mentioned earlier, is sort of raised in this report, but not brought to fruition, I think not because Becca Lewis doesn't understand it, but because she's being obtuse intentionally, is the aspect of the parasocial relationship. That, yes, people that you see on YouTube, you perceive of as your friends because you develop over time a relationship with them. It is not a typical relationship, but it is a relationship nonetheless. This is terrifying to them. This is the scariest thing that could happen.
And a lot of times there is a relationship. Like, I mean, for example, you know, if you go to my Patreon and sign up, you can join my Discord and literally interact with me on a daily basis. And I'm not unique in that. And even with the YouTube, like a live stream comment, you can interact with someone in a way that you can see, you can see news media attempting it, like, oh, tweet us at CNN Cares or whatever to tell us your story, and we'll put it or use this hashtag, and it'll be scrolling across the bottom. They try to do this, but they don't have a way. They should, but they don't have a way to build a participatory structure into their broadcast in the same way that YouTube does. So of course we're more relatable and accessible. I think accessibility is left out.
We can't even call it, actually. This is like the cutting edge, I guess. It's not even cutting edge of research in this field. Is, can we even call it a parasocial relationship? It is a social relationship. Super chats, one of the things that Becca Lewis seems upset by, are a perfect exemplar of this, in that the super chat in particular makes sure that ensures that the person responds likely to what you said. Give them $2 and they'll be like, oh, hey, I see it. It pops up in a bright color. I see that very easily. And I will, of course, respond. Most people that I know respond to the chat in general, if it's not being insane. But, this is, it actually transforms it from a pure parasocial, which is generally perceived as a unidirectional relationship, into, again, a bidirectional one. We have that opportunity. Fox News, as much as CNN, does not. They are traditional media that does not have the opportunity to interact with people in that way. And as such, they will never develop the kind of, you'll never have a parasocial relationship with Anderson Cooper in the way that you could with, I don't know, Dick Master, Peen Wienerstein, right?
Yeah, exactly. But there's something else to be pointed out to that is the responsiveness element. Because what happens is that these big MSM structures, they can goof up, they can screw up badly, but they're basically monopolies or an oligopoly. Their audience is not going to leave them because the audience has no place to go. Whereas, for example, to bring up Kraut, but in an illuminative manner, here we have a YouTuber who is fairly prominent, who blew up because he started doing stupid shit and was unresponsive to his audience, did not self-correct. And because he failed to self-correct, remember last year with the whole stupid anti-alt-right videos that were just idiotic, right? He started losing audience members and ultimately lost all of his relevancy. I mean, so it really is a pure marketplace of ideas, in that if you're not responding to your audience, and if you're not taking in the feedback that your audience is giving you, for good or ill, then you're quickly going to vanish. Well, of course, negative feedback. I mean, like thumbs down, basically. If you don't pay attention to your audience, you're going to go out the window. And we've seen it happen. So that we're all aware of that. We're not going to go and piss off our audience. Or if we do piss off our audience, we're going to be very clear as to why we're saying something that we suspect maybe our audience doesn't like. And the funny thing is that a lot of times when we do that, our audience likes it, or at least understands where we're coming from and doesn't discount it. That kind of responsiveness is necessary because there is infinite competition. But with the MSM, how many CNNs can there be? Only one or two, maybe. It did it with a big presses, and so it's basically an oligopoly. And so basically, this woman is defending oligopolies.
Well, but this is what the media wants. The media, or I should say, this is what the mainstream really expected, was to become the new Walter Cronkites. They're used to a media environment that looks like it did in the 1950s and 60s, where America had a broad cultural consensus. And the media really was just the mouthpiece for that broad consensus. Now, what's so strange is that they're in many ways lamenting the lack of consensus, respect for authority that they spent the last 30 years trying to undermine. So, but that's what they're really lamenting. They're lamenting the fact that they have gotten to the top of these institutions, only to see that these institutions, due to largely their own actions, have had their authority totally undermined.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I fully agree. You go ahead, Aiden.
Oh no, that's. I think it's the locus of all of their rage, which is the only way I can describe this constant outlash, which is sloppy at best. Again, I wouldn't even call what this is sloppy. This is an intentional hit piece, essentially, but it is sloppy. They don't seem to be able to provide relevant and active and accurate research because it does not exist. But what we get are consistently things like this, hit pieces against Brett Kavanaugh. It's always, it's always a new thing. The mainstream media is essentially just angry that we have replaced them, or we are replacing them in the best of our ability, provided we're not deplatformed. So that is why they support and produce documents like this that I think they see as their only salvation. Because otherwise people are leaving en masse and in droves. And we can see that through, for example, CNN's demographic or their data in terms of their viewership.
Their ratings, they're tanking. Nickelodeon is getting more views than CNN.
HGTV is as well. It's everything is doing better than CNN.
Here's a key issue that I found. That the people in these organizations, they all come from elite educational institutions. And they are, or sometimes not that elite, but higher tier, if you will. The top quarter or the top 20% or whatever. And they all are ideologically conformists. They're all ideologically, politically on the same page. And what's interesting is that they try to inject their ideology into the news, into comic books, into movies, into what have you. And they consistently fail. And therefore, they turn around and blame the audience. They blame the audience that the audience is not doing what they're supposed to, which is consume mindlessly what they are dishing up, which the audience does not want. And when they see a competitor, they go after that competitor, like the good capitalist shills that they are, right? But they don't want the competition. They're afraid of it. I'm being inarticulate, but it seems what I'm trying to say is that it seems to be going back inevitably to higher education, and how higher education has become corrupted because there's this need for credentialism in our society, and at the same time the credential factories have been co-opted by people with a very clear ideology, and they expect all the students who want to get the credential to toe the line, ideologically speaking. Am I reaching, or what do you all think of that? I'm asking Aiden.
It definitely starts in academia. That, to me, is beyond question. The question is, the problem is we're sort of linking in a few different effects. The first one is that, we have all these problems with the need to constantly publish and sort of non-replicable results appearing in journals and credentialism and all that stuff. The other thing is this, and I haven't really figured out how to conceptualize this or to convert it into some kind of bite-sized concept, but this very strange transition that was started in the 1960s and that was completed in the early 2000s, when essentially a lot of the silent generation retired from the academic positions they had previously occupied, where many of the undergraduate dimension of courses like sociology and cultural studies became clearinghouses for one particular right kind of idea, where they essentially the university sort of reconverted themselves into seminaries for the progressive ideology. And that's essentially what a lot of these journalism schools, a lot of these cultural studies schools have trained. They've trained now at least one generation of people who are trained to be more, I don't want to use this in a pejorative sense, since I think in many ways society does need clerics, but they've trained more clerics than philosophers. And they've trained these clerics to occupy positions that previously required people to be more critical. But this is not what anyone wants or is trained for. So they're essentially operating these things like clearinghouses for their particular their particular worldview. And I think it would be one thing if this were, some reasonably sustainable view of the world, but as we've seen and I think Me Too is really bringing all of these forces to a head, is that there is no coherent vision of human sexuality, of diversity and race relations, of international politics that has come out of the academy. What it is a mishmash of grievances, emotions, dissatisfactions with how the world works, all melded together into a political alliance and then repackaged as if it were some kind of coherent religion. But in essence, the religion is only one of deconstruction and grievance and can't sustain any institution on itself. And so what's happening is these people are getting in charge of institutions that were left to them by the previous American secularist Christian worldview. They're driving them into the ground because they're host of a raft of self-contradictory ideas, and then they're lashing out at the forces that are coming in to fill the vacuum in their own inability to maintain these power relationships. And I think that's what's going on. I don't really have a way of encapsulating it into some kind of coherent idea. The only thing I can say is that I think Me Too might be the beginning of the end. I don't know if they have. I think they're trying to ride Me Too, but the thing is they don't understand. They don't understand is that Me Too, if it's taken to its logical conclusion,
it's a double-edged sword.
Everything.
Yes.
It'll devour everything, right? What Me Too demands is that emotional reactions and that unsubstantiated stories essentially be able to unseat any kind of authority that is anywhere, and that will never ever accomplish anything, because there always will be another story that comes out. And we've seen this even was Asia Argento herself gets accused of Me Too.
It doesn't seem like a completely fake.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to point out something. There's a super chat here from Ryan English. Thanks, Ryan. It says, doesn't, quote, only say what your audience likes, unquote, as the primary revenue model kill any hope for a common truthful narrative? It's what's killing the MSM. And that's actually kind of interesting. It falls back into your point, Dave, of the Me Too, that it's basically feelings over facts. Aidan, what do you have to say?
Oh, I would just say, I mean, in terms of, don't even get me started on the whole academia thing, because that's like the onus of my entire channel and life.
But let's go into this Me Too thing, because let's pause a little bit or go into a different topic and circle back to this issue, because I'm interested in this report, but we need a little break thematically. And the issue I have is, we have the Kavanaugh confirmation, right? And we have this woman, Professor Ford, is it? Who said some stuff, but
there's my name again. I can't escape from it.
And this woman is basically saying that she was sexually assaulted by 2 or maybe 4 men at some party 36 years ago. She swears it was Brett Kavanaugh was there and he was the one who did it. But the other guy who was supposed to be there says nothing like that ever happened. She doesn't remember, the accuser doesn't remember the place it happened, the time it happened, or anything of where it happened or could have happened. So there's nothing to investigate.
Nick, isn't it already outside of the statute of limitations of being 35 years old?
Not being familiar with the specific state that it was in's laws, but I would think so. Typically, the only thing that has an unlimited statute of limitations would be murder. Some states do have like a 30-year statute on sexual assault, but going beyond 30. Yeah, and so I can't say 100% because I'm just not familiar with that specific statute, but probably. And the reason, the philosophical reason for a statute of limitations is how on earth do you investigate something?
How do you prove it? How could the FBI possibly investigate this?
Well, and importantly, the FBI can't.
Because it's not a federal crime.
Right. It's not a federal crime. This would be a state crime. So the state police would have to investigate it. If anything, the FBI could be brought in to assist with that investigation. It wouldn't have any sort of usefulness, except for maybe going outside of the state to contact people who have moved around who might be witnesses. But there's going to be no physical evidence. Right. This 35 years ago, any wounds or forensic evidence would be healed. No one remembers when, like you mentioned, there's no date, there's no time. We're not even sure how many people were involved. Some of the people there and taking a neutral position on whether he did it or not it doesn't matter if you think he did or not, because here's the question. Human memory, the way it works, you've got 35 years of something building up to Me Too. Yeah. So let's say there was some sort of contact between Kavanaugh and this woman that was physical. And you put that into a narrative of victimization. You add in the baggage of an entire life. You add in therapy, and you can maybe trace back some of the issues you're dealing with today to something inappropriate, whether illegal or not, that might have happened. That doesn't mean that someone was raped, but the way our brains work, it can mean that we remember being raped. I think, Aiden, you can probably comment on this more.
Yes, exactly. You're completely correct. The way that our brains store memories is not... Our brains are amazing machines, but they're not perfect. They often store memories incorrectly, and particularly when we talk about traumatic memories, those most of all can be misinterpreted in terms of long-term recollection. You can look at all of the research and data on PTSD, for example, to see from a common thing that all of us know, we have this kind of cultural understanding that a person was in Vietnam, they hear fireworks and they think gunshots. That is a classic example of how memories can be misinterpreted. But it really means that our long-term memory is not always great at informing our current memory, because it's how we process is we take from the long-term center and then we process into the current reaction to things. And it's not always going to be great. That's why we need, evidence, because memory is flawed potentially.
Yeah, and to address a point from the chat, this isn't to give the accuser an excuse, because knowing these things is relevant to things like therapy, because this is how memory works, can put certain triggering events, no matter how innocuous they may have been in the past, those can be molded into things that are bigger, that need to be resolved in some sort of way for the person. But breaking it into the legal world, you can't impose liability on someone because of how your brain has changed things over the past 35 years. So no, it's not an excuse for the accuser. She shouldn't be making these accusations, mainly because one, it's outside of the statute of limitations, and there's no means to investigate it. She doesn't have corroborating parties. She doesn't have any sort of factual basis. Like, she hasn't even laid out
she refuses to testify, though, as well. She's completely refused, says I won't testify.
Well, no, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that this is all bullshit, okay? That it's basically political maneuvering. What's interesting is that there was one woman who said that, it happened, I believe her, and all the rest of it, and she got pressed by Nina Totenberg on NPR, who is not exactly, Ann Coulter, right? And this woman walked back to everything that she said, and she basically said, and this was interesting, she said that she wanted to believe her, and that's why she said and agreed on Facebook, at least, that it was all true. The Me Too movement, and this is the thing I think is pernicious. The Me Too movement is basically fomenting the notion that if somebody says something, not only do you believe them unquestionably, but you have to agree with them, and you have to basically bear false witness, because that's what basically happened with not Ford, but this friend of Ford's who
They become deified. They
yeah.
become untouchable.
Well, that's another thing that is totally a separate issue, is that the victimization mentality is that the victim is always right and always true and never lies, which is, of course, so much bullshit. Remember Jackie and Rolling Stone at UVA? I mean, how did that fucking thing play out, right? I mean, it's just absurd, you know. Just because I say that, you know, something horrible happened to me doesn't mean it's true, and especially in this day and age where you get lionized for being a victim, which I personally, on a personal level, I despise. But that's the reality of our current society. If you say that you're a victim of something horrible, I mean, you're automatically granted, you know, special status, and not only special status, you are taken more seriously, and everybody stops what they're doing to listen to you. So it is perfect recipe for people who are not particularly interesting and not particularly anything to all of a sudden garner a whole bunch of unearned attention. And so, of course, they're going to do it. They're going to pretend to be victims to get this unearned attention.
To bring us back full circle, do you think this is going to happen with Becca Lewis? That she will #MeToo? I'm attacked by the alt-right.
Okay, I see Nick nodding along. Okay, he's nodding along so much. I thought, holy shit, is that a bobble doll or whatever the hell is it? Yeah. Nick, shoot, what do you have to say about that?
Oh, it's definitely like that. If you let's see, page 24, she talks about how
let me scroll it, show it to the audience, and go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm getting there myself. I just have my little note that just all it says is bully. But page 24. So where is it?
I'm looking for it.
It's right
24.
It's the top paragraph. So it says influencers on the AIN often bully and make fun of other influencers.
Wait, which 24?
24 of the document, not 24 of the PDF.
Of their actual,
right there. Yep.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
So yeah, influencers in the AIN often bully and make fun of other influencers they disagree with, and sometimes encourage their viewers to do the same. Because they sit at the intersection of ideological disagreements and personal conflict, the influencers can often criticize social justice by targeting individuals and treating them as proxies for progressive ideology. They can then trivialize this approach by referring to it as drama or political debate. But and if in the context of what's going on here, it's all about let's see, political influencers in the AIN have also built on their opposition to PC culture and the language police by co-opting one of the fundamental political causes of the New Left, the free speech movement. But the idea is that you know, the influencer network uses the free speech market to say, no, we'll combat bad speech with different speech, and that becomes bullying. So if her paper here, I'm sure we're a panel of bullies now, but her paper gets maligned and trashed for being non-academic, for failing basic methodological and evidentiary obligations, for being absurdly presuppositional, then we're just bullying it, and that's not allowed. You can't compete speech with speech. So yeah, right. I think absolutely, as people, especially people with much bigger platforms than this poor PhD student, guys like Tim Pool who are out there, that horrible person,
Nazi.
Tim Pool.
That beanie, that's a Nazi symbol. That beanie, it's Nazism. Yeah. By the way, H. Rourke super chat says, Aiden, might I suggest you'd be better off with an experimenter who boasts a postgraduate science education? You need the best man when such compelling and valuable research equipment is involved. Very interesting.
If this is a proposition, I would say this. My time in the academy was not well met with other researchers. I've never gotten along well with other scientists in terms of
does not play well with others. Okay.
No. I'm because
neither do I. So that's cool.
I just to be completely honest, I can imagine. I know why people don't probably like me is that they think, oh, she's smug or whatever. that's why I don't like other scientists. What do you think? Like, I don't like them either. And big brains actually I don't think play well.
Oh, Aiden, you're such a wimp. You should be like me and just embrace being an asshole. That I have a card. It says, Coach Red Pill, asshole in chief.
Oh, Coach, you know that I'm too high in agreeableness to possibly be. But it's weird. Being with other academics, but I think you're completely right, Nick, though, that that's how this is going to be played. That, oh no, I've been bullied, and it's why it is.
The worst part is I think that you, Aiden, and me reaching out to her are going to be both of those efforts are going to be used against us.
No, I reached out to her with under my real name, under my real academic credentials.
Oh, okay.
So,
I went under as CRP, but I think it's going to be used as evidence of bullying. Just the nicest interview request. It was called an interview request.
This was not an interview request. This is a request for data, which is completely a normal thing that we are. So, for example, if I publish a study, right, in any journal, doesn't matter. I'm supposed to hold on to that data for a minimum of 5 years. If it involves human participants and is medical, a minimum of 15 to 30 years. Okay, if it involves medical data, sometimes up to 50. You're supposed to hold on to every single piece of raw data. But for social sciences, because we're, a kind of a joke, 5 years is the minimum. So for me to ask 2 days later,
not me.
No, I know. But for me, 2 days later to ask for it and to get now, I understand it takes some time. It takes some time. However, just as a anecdote, I asked some researchers from Germany for an English translation of an instrument that they used to conduct some research. An instrument that was found to have some very, very strong inter-item correlations and be a very good instrument. They got back to me within 12 hours. Sure. So generally speaking, researchers are pretty quick to respond to you.
Well, it makes sense that if you put out a major paper,
though,
if you have a major paper, you have all that pretty much set up in a package, and you just copy paste and send, right?
Sure, it should be easy. My point is that they translated their instrument to me to English within 12 hours and sent it to me.
But they must have had it in English. Well, it doesn't matter.
Whatever. They got back to me very quickly, and that's been generally my
look.
I'm talking even across, country lines. Because she's at Stanford, I guess. So she's in. Okay, she's not in Oxford anymore. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the reason I wanted you guys on, because you're my academics. Academics, please respond.
We have responded.
I don't know anything. Okay, I mean, if somebody tells me this is an academic paper, shit, what do I know? I barely know how to read, right? And as to the writing thing, I'm only very iffy about the issue. So I'm going to have to ask somebody more competent as to whether it's academic. Now, I mean, academically, it cuts the mustard, if you will. Now, you three have all said, no, it does not. Okay. So clearly it's just a political thing. And it seems to me that the only issue in this is to identify a specific second tier group, because it's basically first they came for Andrew Anglin, then they came for Alex Jones, and now they're coming for us. And they have this handy title, this alternative influencer network. Though I wish they had come up with something, a little more,
I mean, it's too close to anus. I think that's the obvious.
No, it's not cool. I mean, I wish we're like the fascist influencer network or something like that. Something.
Well,
cool.
No, she can't call it that, because the whole way this is being presented and the way that it is intended to be presented to the public,
objective,
is that it's objective, and that you, dear viewer, innocent libertarian, you will be taken in, and your mind will be warped and taken control of by the evil Richard Spencer. It's that kind of absurdity, this hypodermic needle sort of effect that, now again...
No, it's childish.
I think Dr. Lehman misspoke in that he said he thought it was a nothing burger, because it is a nothing burger scientifically. Yeah. But this will end up influencing people, because people will say, look, the ivory tower produced this. And I lament every day
there was a reason that I put up the funders behind it, because the funders are all, blue chip. They're all the blue chip funders that are very, very serious. The John and Catherine MacArthur Foundation, they're the ones who give the genius grants, right? And it's not only the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but also Microsoft as a corporate entity. They're all funding this Data and Society bullshit, right? And Data and Society is putting its full weight behind this report, quote unquote. And it's basically a target list. So yeah, Wired ran a story about it. The Guardian ran a story about it. I'm sure that over the next few days, more stories are going to come out. I bet over the weekend, the New York Times is going to run a piece about it. I mean, it's going to spread out there.
Everyone will, yeah.
It's going to be like the definitive statement of a particular sector of YouTube. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm troubled by this because there are a lot of people who earn a living at this. And I'm very, very concerned about that because
is that what we're really concerned about? Because what we're really concerned about is the fact that our society is tearing itself apart at the seams, and it doesn't matter if you earn a living on YouTube or not. If the culture goes to the point where we can't trust any authority and everyone's at each other's throats, we're going to have a lot more problem than people can't draw a check from their Patreon.
Yeah, it's going to be civil war, basically.
Well, that is,
we're quickly heading towards that direction.
I know we are, and I do appreciate the fact that we're here, and I wanted to interject sort of a bomb here, and the bomb is that a lot of people here, I know we made one mistake thinking that libertarianism could fix the whole funding ourselves thing. We can't be MasterCard, we can't be Stripe, or maybe we could be Stripe. That might be more replaceable, but that's not the point. At some point, infrastructure matters. The second thing here is that Me Too and the victim culture and all of this stuff, this did not come into a vacuum. This wasn't generated from a vacuum. This wasn't the result. I mean, I wish I could say it was just George Soros doing nefarious
it would be easier if it were. Yeah, but
it's not. This is a response to a very necessary desire and need for societal consensus and a societal baseline metaphysical understanding of the universe. In the absence of that, people are going to be trying any way to get the attention of the public. And as one of the people who gave the super chat was very aptly pointing out, there's the alternative problem that YouTube just descends into shitposting, into e-celeb drama, into transient bullshit going back and forth and nothing ever being decided or determined. And there's also the problem that in the positions we're at, we can never really ask people to do things that are hard. We can never come to conclusions that are hard to accept, that could require sacrifice, because at the end of the day, we are in some sense entertainers. And the thing is, at the end, before the societal consensus that the mainstream represents really the skeleton of, it could say, okay, look, this just needs to be done. We don't want to do it. This needs to be done. But we're entering a period where hard truths and political action just can't be taken because no one has any consensus over what needs to be done whatsoever.
Well, my thinking is that, and I've discussed this on the Coach and Benway podcast at some length. I'm reluctantly coming to the conclusion that we're heading towards some kind of confrontation between two sides, some sort of civil war of some sort. We're seeing it culturally and politically to an extent, but I think that the tensions between the two groups, broadly speaking, between the coastal elites and the broad middle of the country, they're becoming more and more exacerbated because we feel that the political center has lost all legitimacy. We don't buy the bullshit that the center is selling, neither on the left nor on the right. So you see on the left more and more of these quote unquote democratic socialists who are just socialists and who are very into censorship and authoritarian or totalitarian control. They are rising in popularity, even against impossible flaws that would have disqualified them before. For instance, this woman Salazar, who won recently some piddly ass shit seat in New York somewhere, not even a congressional seat, I forget what it was. But she was a known liar and fabulist and all kinds of just dishonesty, and yet she won in spite of all that. Okay, because she was peddling this socialist nonsense, because people feel that the center is just not responsive anymore, and it feels as if the center is just responsive to corporate interests and nobody else, and people are of secondary or tertiary importance. And so they're gravitating to the extremes, and that leads inevitably to some sort of confrontation between those extremes.
But the problem is that people like Alex Jones, as much as I lament the fact that he was censored by all the social media companies, he's not a solution to that deficit. And in the absence of any kind of overarching societal ethic, they can say, look, guys, I know you want to do this, but you really can't. People will be appealing to victimhood culture because it's the only thing left they have to redress grievances. The sexual culture that persisted in this country between 1970 and now is unsustainable for purposes of a variety of things. Yeah. It makes women miserable. It leads to broken families. It leads to poor outcomes for children. And I think Me Too is basically the only socially acceptable response that I'll use your term, that the West Coast, the East, West, and East coastal elites have given to people to address actually legitimate complaints they have about the current sexual and family culture we've developed in this country and in the West generally.
I don't know about that. Nick, what do you think?
No, I think that's accurate. Or even if it's not accurate, I think it's a valid sentiment because whether how do I phrase this? So society operates under a set of ethics, and then we apply morality through that ethical set. But society changes what the values are, and they're not objectively better or worse at any given time. That's presentism, right? The idea that now is better than some other position. But we really just go through this point where we choose a different set of ethics, and it molds and changes. And I think we're coming up to this.
That's not the process I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that the ethics that we currently have being promoted since the sexual revolution are just manifestly not working for the purposes that they were put in place to actually obtain.
No, I agree. I agree with that. So I'm sorry if I'm being inarticulate.
Sure.
I agree with that it's not working. And I think society is wrestling with that. I think that's what's going on. And so we've got this polarization. Like, which way do we go? Do we go full into it? And then everyone is the only way to sustain it, like you said, for the idea that we should persist in this path is through the Me Too movement. Like, that would be, we have to have this free sexualization. We have to push the narrative that promiscuity and is good. Monogamy is maybe bad. Okay for some people.
No, it's bad. I mean, like, I saw an article in Cosmo that said you should have at least 25 sexual partners before you get married. This was addressed to women. I was like, what the hell? You know?
There you go. So but if that's the idea that you want to pursue, then you have to have a Me Too movement, because then you have to try and build up some sort of protective structure for all of the damage it's going to cause. It's going to fail. That you can't have a movement that eats itself, right? So, but then you've got the other side where we've got this cultural pushback saying, wait a minute. You know, 50 years ago, we had a system that was producing better results than this in these measures. And of course, they'll say there's any number of arguments about what was wrong with 50 years ago, but they're not relevant to the task at hand. But so, no, I think you're absolutely right. That Me Too is the logical left reaction, or the logical left step that needs to take place in the value system that's been pursued since the late 60s, early 70s.
But there's one more step here. The one more step is that without an answer to the objections being brought up from a non-leftist source, we really don't have anything to say about it. I mean, what do you say? What is the alternative? And I don't think cultural libertarianism is. I'm not saying like it doesn't. It's a bad answer. I'm saying it's not even approaching any kind of answer. That's not what it's doing. And I think that the difficulty is that, I mean, it's easy to laugh at SJWs. It's easy to laugh at people who are flailing over the mistakes that the progressives made and trying to retrofit them into some kind of narrative that just doesn't fit. But what's the alternative? Has anyone discussed this?
I mean,
Aiden?
I think
Aiden?
people.
Good point.
Let me bring in Aiden on this one because she's
Yeah.
the only chick here, so she ought to be able to say something about Me Too. Do you feel that we're like harassing you, Aiden? You know?
Yes, I feel very offended right now. I'm being harassed by 3 men. This should be
And
not
the
on
chat,
YouTube, but
and
on
the
Pornhub.
chat.
Oh, I haven't looked at it. But look. Again, the thing that put Black Pigeon Speaks apparently on this list of all of his connections to the alt-right was the stream we all did together. And again, that I'm a little bit offended I'm not on this list, but also
No, I think
grateful,
actually,
to be honest.
to tell you the truth, I think it was professional jealousy. Because I think that she didn't put you on precisely because you are her. You're her doppelganger.
Yeah, I
think that
am,
it
which is
bothers
very
her.
bizarre. But I think
Yeah,
also
because for Chad and Nick, who might not know, Aiden's like, she's everywhere. He is like the social butterfly. She goes from stream to stream.
No, not really, not
Yeah,
compared to
she paid-
Single, but
Paid
I
to be on this. I didn't want to have her on, but she paid me like a lot of money.
yes, I strong armed you. The point
Yeah,
is though, actually,
PayPal.
what I would say more on that point, is that I think that very specifically, certain people who are very, very data and information and science driven were kept out of this. Myself and
Who else?
Alternative Hypothesis.
All type. Oh yeah, that was the
Justicar,
noticeable one.
Iconoclast, people who
Justicar,
just go through data.
Yeah, guys who are really hardcore and much more careful than because a lot of people on this site and on this network.
Why
and
do
I
they
include myself,
always bring
are
up wife with a
sloppy.
purpose? Why
What?
do they always bring up wife with a purpose? They always
She has
do.
a trivial channel. I mean, no disrespect to the woman,
But they
She-
do
it's
every
great.
time.
Yeah.
Why? Because
Well,
she's a nice lady. She has a personality. They can attack her personality. And they don't have to attack her arguments.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they've done to the rest of us. Is because we don't want to deal with hardcore data, science, facts, information. So let's ignore those people that only talk about science. Let's ignore the people who only talk about data. That is, I believe, why people like. I mean, if Black Pigeon Speaks is on there, his channel is significantly larger than mine. But if he was on there for that one stream that we all did together, then there's no reason I would not have been. And Ryan Folk has interacted with far more people.
Yeah,
in
he's all
the
over
big
the
scheme of
place.
things.
Yeah,
And he's been doing it for 10 years.
yeah.
So
All
he's
type, Iconoclast, Justicar. Who else?
those would be the big names that I would think that if you're complaining about white nationalism and quote race science, which is a big obvious emphasis of the paper, of that these are the people who are talking about false race science, I believe. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but she seems upset about that. You would think you would include, I don't know, now, yes, JF is on there.
Well, JF
not-
is all over the place. He's interviewed
That's
everybody.
why.
Yeah,
Because he would be
and
impossible
he is
to
graduated
not include.
towards alt-right. I mean, he is alt-right now. He wasn't at the start of it, or at least early in mid.
I'd say, isn't he still a
2017.
libertarian?
No, I would say that he's really gone alt-right, but I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I would even call myself. I would say that I was like a ethno-concerned civic nationalist or something like that. Whatever. I think which is how JF might describe himself. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but the point is, JF is on there just because of how many people he's hosted, and it's a frequency-based network analysis.
Yeah, and it's a trivially true kind of analysis.
Again, as we were saying, there's no Kevin Logans, there's no Christy Winters, people who have interacted with these people with Sargon probably more than anyone. Someone like Christy Winters and Kevin Logan.
Okay, let's.
But also no Ryan Folks. So it's no people that might be detrimental to your cause, but also no people who might provide, let's say, pure information.
Yeah, well, where do you think that this article, this report, this bullshit, whatever you want to call it, where do you think it's going to lead in the foreseeable future? I mean, do you think that it's going to be like the albatross around our necks into the future as like, ooh, you're part of that evil alternative influencer network kind of thing? You think that that's
I think it will have the exact same effect as the Washington Post article on, or not Washington Post, excuse me,
Hate Watch Group?
Wall Street Journal article on PewDiePie of last year. It will turn a lot of people to a greater degree against the mainstream. Because here's the thing about this particular article. It attacks everyone. Not everyone, but it attacks people on both sides of it attacks people on the left. Chris Reagan is not, and Bundy King are not right-wing extremists. The
Well, Bunty King has a whole set of problems of his own right about now.
I know, but the point is the cultural gestalt of YouTube and all of this is very
who
positive.
laughed? Was that Dave or Nick?
It was me. Sorry. I
Yeah,
was just,
you know what we're
He
talking
knows
about, right?
it. Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
just
I do
remembering
too.
the last 30 seconds of that video made my day.
Which last 30 seconds of the video? Which video are you talking about? Because there are several, as far as I know.
Oh, I'm just the last 30 seconds of his "I'm a cuck" video.
Oh,
my
my God. Okay. Just
Maximum
whoever's here still on the stream, right? We probably bored you silly, so we'll just do a little bit of gossip. Holy fucking shit! I couldn't believe that, man. I mean, Jesus Christ. That was like the ultimate cringe, and like, I'm a cock, ha ha ha, and that Bunty laugh of his, and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe that. Was I the only one, or did you guys agree?
Oh man, I was dying. I showed it to my wife, who cares zero about internet personalities. I'm like,
Right.
You've never heard of this guy? It doesn't matter. Just listen to this laugh.
Oh God, it was just so sad. And no, there's the other one. He was talking about how do you say it delicately? Not cunnilingus, but the other orifice. I don't know, what do you call it?
Rimming?
Copro, yeah, rimming, basically. He was talking about it like it was like the greatest thing ever. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to go there, man. But at the same time, it was like weirdly hypnotic. I had to stare at that video as
that's
this
why-
guy just went on and on. Oh my God, it was so
And
funny.
see, that's why Bunty King is dangerous, is because, and this is the point of the article, guys. I'm not making this up. If you haven't read all of it, is because Bunty King is very personable and relatable with his sexual endeavors, and then he will be influenced by the 4chan and 8chan audience, who are apparently all white nationalists who hate everybody. They will be influencing Bunty, who will then convince Bunty to network with Richard Spencer and will turn your children into Nazis.
I
And
think it's
that
actually
is-
the opposite. I think it's actually
Cuckolded Nazis. Yeah.
that if that Bunty, being an open and honest person about his sexuality, I'm not going to make comments because I frankly don't give a shit. But him being open and honest about his whatever, and you believing him to be an honest person, will then lead you to anybody associated with Bunty. And who's associated with Bunty? Oh, well, Sargon is associated with Bunty on this list, and Sargon had a conversation with Richard Spencer. And that's how you, as the tabula rasa, blank slate, open vessel of information be poured into your brain, will become a white nationalist, according to this research, which is absurd. It is not how people work. It's not how media psychology works. It's not how any of
Andrew here says, thanks, Andrew, for the super chat. He says, Coach, can you explore on the topic symptom in the context of the following scheme of the bigger picture, which seems to be a cause? Google cultural Marxism infographic for the green on black picture. Okay, we will do that. I'm sorry, Nick, I cut you off. You were saying?
Oh, that's fine. The one thing I was just getting to as a joke is that later on in the article, her last point is that it's under influencer radicalization, where the influencer becomes radicalized by their audience. So there really is no safety.
She's saying it's a feedback.
We're fucked any way that we look at it. Basically, is that
because
basically?
ultimately, and she specifically cites 4chan and 8chan in here somewhere, but it's the idea that as a response to, I don't know, money or attention or whatever, that even benign influencers will become radicalized by the radical elements of their audience and then spread that radicalization on. So that was the joke I was going with Bunty King there. Is that 4chan will convert him into a white nationalist.
Well, they actually did this, if you weren't aware. They did this already. Do you know Mouthy Buddha? You obviously know him, Coach.
Yeah, I know.
They said that about Buddha is that he spent too much time. He is. I like Buddha a lot. I think we've actually rarely spoken personally, but let me give you a little bit of a prediction. I think he will be one of several people used as a sort of canary in the coal mine to say, look, if you hang out around people who are more right-leaning than you for long enough time, you will become one of them. And that's frankly not how any of this works. People do form their own politics, in part because of social influence. We're a social species. We're tribalistic. That, however, means we will stick to the tribe that we already belong to rather than switching very easily, because to switch things and to change the basic premise of our sense of the self creates extreme cognitive dissonance, which is thereby significant psychological discomfort. That's not how we don't like doing that.
I'm going to disagree with you here, Aiden. I mean, yeah. I think that they're describing a real phenomenon, and they're not describing, say, for instance, somebody...
You mean red pilling?
Yes, they're describing a phenomenon where you come in contact with 1, 2, or 3 facts that make it very, very hard to see the internal contradictions between different positions that the left is currently taking. We can all see them. We could probably all sit here and rattle off. We basically did with Me Too, didn't like 10 minutes ago. All
My
these
only point
ways
would be our facts different from personalities. She's complaining about the personalities. We can all agree that facts can change opinions, but can a personality?
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you poison a personality, then you're going to essentially not believe their facts. We humans do function on the basis of authority. I would maintain. I guess I'm kind of I'm not summoning studies in my mind that support this, but the personal experience, and I think sociology will support this, although you free smack me down.
Zimbardo 1969, Zimbardo 71. There you go.
but our understanding of facts is very, very strictly linked to our association with them and an authority figure. And if you can essentially say that the only people who believe in pick your, hate fact, right? Let's just say, I don't know, like sexual realism, like the idea that we're a sexually dimorphic species. If only people who believe that are Hollywood Nazis, not really a fact in the sociological sense. And that's what the YouTube personality thing threatens. Pardon me.
No, exactly. You're completely right.
I was just processing what you were saying, and I was thinking of something else that I've noticed. And this is, let me just deviate the conversation a little bit here, is that, see, I've noticed something really interesting, is that we've all gone to higher education. We've all had to jump through a whole bunch of hoops in order to get into the schools that we wanted, and so forth and so on, and the postgraduate careers that we wanted, and whatever, right? We had to comply, which is basically the issue. Now, I've noticed that a lot of people on YouTube who are very, very successful, I'm talking both YouTubers and many of their more interesting audience members, are extremely capable people who were not particularly good at complying. And what I've noticed is that a lot of these people in a less structured society would have risen higher in the social hierarchy. But that because of the not just credentialism, but the need to severely comply in order to get into the right school and therefore the right graduate program and all the rest of it, it means that these people who are less compliant are sort of like alienated from the society. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they're very capable. They're very capable and they're very energetic, but they don't have any outlet for their capability or energy. And so they find themselves alienated from their society and not integrated into it. And so the YouTubers start critiquing the society, because I mean, we've all noticed that a lot of the YouTubers, the successful YouTubers, are people who couldn't cut it in the straight world, but yet they're undeniably smart and energetic and driven and focused. I mean, they have a lot of very, very positive qualities, but the compliant society that we have just didn't have a place for them because they weren't able to comply, or perhaps they weren't able to comply at the right ages, at when you're a teenager or what have you, when you're doing the whole college thing. I mean, I remember, when I was a teenager, I had a whole bunch of classmates who were fucking bums. They barely squeaked by with a D-, right? And then later on, they were incredibly successful because they were very energetic people. But I went to high school in Chile, which is not so structured as a lot of the other democracies of the West, insofar as the credential that you need to survive. But so the point I'm trying to make, isn't it sort of like people a fight, a polarization between people who are compliant and just nod along and just follow the man, who are compliant gears in the machinery, and those who are alienated? Does this make any sense?
I disagree fundamentally, because I would have fell into that definition up until 2 years ago when I up until a year ago when I started this channel and then quit from my job.
Mhm.
I was like as much of a, peg in the machine as you could possibly be.
Mhm.
I had dissident opinions, but I kept them to myself. So, me going after this it started as a hobby because I was sick and I needed something to do. And now it's my job mostly. But I think that, I don't know. I think there's also some, it's interesting that there's
wait a second. You yourself are saying that you are now dissident, that you're no longer compliant, that you're like outside looking in.
Isn't that maybe more fun though? I think for a lot of us, we wanted to be that way. I guess you're right in that sense. I also find that a lot of the people who are more pegs in place
square pegs, yeah,
are maybe a little bit envious of that. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm projecting, but I think that at least I can say from my perspective of having to be an academic and saying these are the only kind of opinions you can have, that you can express, and you have to constantly keep anything else to yourself. That being able to get out of that was very, very
liberating.
Liberating. It's like, oh, okay, I don't have.
I can say this. I can say.
Yeah, I don't have to live within your confines. I can say what I want to say. No, it has consequences, and that's true. But maybe some of the frustration is because of
Nick. We don't really know you. I mean, like your channel sort of like burst on the scene because you got like more than 20 IQ points, which is more than we can say, and so the law, or at least you can fake it real well. So you're golden, right? So no, in all seriousness.
Actually, I am really interested on your opinion on that as well, Nick.
Yeah,
as someone
who's
who's
your opinion, and also I wanted to know how you got into this issue of doing YouTube videos as a lawyer.
Well,
I'm assuming you have like a practice, and I don't know if you're a part of a firm or you're at independent practice or whatever. But I'm just curious as to how you got here.
So
how did you sink so low that you're live streaming with a
brief background on me? I am a lawyer. I own my own firm. It's in a very small town in central Minnesota. I deal with relatively basic cases, small criminal defense type stuff. I started doing this because some bald Armenian cuck decided to sue Dick Masterson.
Hello? Aiden, you guys hear me?
I'm here. I think
Nick got frozen.
Nick might have.
Oh man, it was like the best part. He was like,
yeah.
right,
I mean, I could give you quick and dirty about a little bit of his background, although I wouldn't like to.
While we're waiting for Nick to reset his thing,
they got me.
They got you. Hang on, Dave's got to go. So, Distributus, just want to thank you very much for joining the conversation. I hope you had a good time.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Distributist, also, I would love to talk to you and Mauritian Struggle sometime. I still want to get like a stream set up to talk about the origin of ethics and morality in religion. So you guys would be cool to talk to about that.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah, let's set that up sometime. I'll catch you guys later. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, take it easy. And also, but if you're listening, Black Pigeon Speaks, he had to cut out earlier. It must be late as hell over in Japan. Yeah. So if you're listening to us, it was great having you on. So anyway, Nick, you were saying, and I see double. Yeah. Oh my God, I got to change my glasses.
I don't know how to fix that.
Don't worry, it's not your fault. It's just
there it
went. Yeah.
Okay. So a bald Armenian cuck decided to sue Dick Masterson for $20 million. And I was, luckily, he made the weirdest decision to sue him in New York because they're both from LA. I was sitting on my couch and got a notification about it. So New York allows you to pull up any document. And I started reading it, and it was the dumbest thing I've ever read legally. speaking. So I decided to stop, and I figured I'd just make a fan video for the Facebook group where I drink a bunch of whiskey and make fun of Maddox a whole lot and just read through this document. And then I did that, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, I never knew all these various elements of the legal world, and you explained them really well." So that's literally how I started. I had no plan to do it, but people encouraged me from that first video. So that's what I do now, is just talk about legal topics. I think I can echo Aiden's sentiment here. It's more fun. It's
more fun.
It's more fun than the real shit, which is fun. And it's, at least for me, I love doing research. Nothing. I mean, you could talk to people from my Discord or something and ask them to confirm. If you send me a data set, nothing makes me more excited. But
it's weird that way. It's just weird
that way. But it's being able to, here's what I always said, and maybe Nick, you might also reflect this a little bit. One thing I've always said for my own life is that the two things I wanted to do from getting a PhD was I wanted to contribute positively to the wealth of human knowledge, and I wanted to inspire other people to love science. Social science, so in quotations, right?
Yes.
But I have a much greater ability to, right? I have a much greater ability to do both of those things on YouTube by seeking a public audience, even if they don't agree with me.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I just put out a video today that's essentially a documentary on the state of mental hospitals in the U.S. I got a couple people who messaged me saying, just based on the title, because I said, should we bring back state asylums? And they go, yeah. I know I'm just asking the question. I don't even actually in the video, I don't even really make a case for it. I just provide some information.
By the way, just real quick, H. Rourke says, thanks H. Rourke. He says, us merry band of misfit intellectuals. Yeah, that seems to be the case. But you were saying, Aiden?
Oh, I had several people actually at this point say I'm removing my patron support. How dare you say this thing? And it makes me sad, but I think far more people will benefit from me disseminating the information. It's not fun information, but it's fun for me to disseminate it in terms of this is stuff that people don't know. And I think that's the thing that we do that the mainstream media will never do. Coach, you provide, for example, help and sort of a father figure to the fatherless generation. You do a kind of you have your own sort of mirror image of Jordan Peterson. You'll tell them a little bit more of the harsh truths, right?
Yeah, Jordan Peterson, who just did a lot of dope when he was growing up. Yeah, exactly.
Peterson is more of the pleasant, like here's the nice.
Well, I talk about the. No, I mean like on a philosophical level, where I'm coming from is the philosophical pragmatism. Pragmatism, not in the quotidian sense that we use it, but in the philosophical sense of just, yes, of course, you can be all skeptical about all facets of reality,
Whatever.
epistemology, everything, but from something that works on a day-to-day basis, you have to be pragmatic. And so you have to face things in a pragmatic sense, and like, what are your specific objectives, and how do you achieve those specific objectives, and focus in that way, in that direction. And so I did a whole series like on how to date women, right? And the funny thing is that this is the kind of shit that when I was like a teenager would have been fucking useful. That's how I focused it.
The point is, though, like, that's what people want to see.
Yeah, I'm 15 and I'm thinking to myself, how do I get girls? How do I get them to like me and to go out with me and potentially sleep with me, right? And so I did a series of videos about that, okay? And people liked it, and because nobody's telling them, because we've been enamored of this notion of the individual to such an extent that all familial relationships have been eviscerated. And fathers are disposable, and therefore they are not transmitting the key pieces of information that young men need to survive, because you cannot have a mother being a father to a child. Okay,
of
both girls and boys need a father, because this is the way I look at it. And you, Aiden, tell me if you think that this is on the right track, is that women, mothers, love their children unconditionally and try to comfort them and soothe them, whereas fathers tend to tell them this is how the world is, and these are
Yeah.
the rules, and these are
That's how
inflexible
men and
rules.
women are. Fundamentally, women are more like let's help and make things better, make things nice, and make things pleasant. But
And,
my
and
point
our
of all
society and
that-
our society is completely matriarchal in that regard, because we're trying at all costs to make everything pleasant and easy and soothing, and the capitalistic and neoliberal economic paradigm that we're living under, the yoke of neoliberalism, I would call it, this consumer society, foments this of like everything must be to your comfort, and if you're not comfortable, then you have to replace it or change it or get a new one or all the rest of it. Where life is not like that. It is only like that in this incredibly rich Western democratic society that we are lucky enough to be living in, which is a historical anomaly. That's the thing that drives me crazy.
Exactly.
This
And my
isn't
point
allowed.
my point here is, though, coach, is that you're providing for people a service that, through telling the truth, like as you just did and as you are doing, that they wouldn't get otherwise, because there are no truth tellers in the mainstream. I think there used to be. And Nick, it's the same thing why people watch your channel, why I listen to your breakdowns of because I don't understand the law that and I have several, like my best friend on the entire planet is a lawyer in Chicago. He is my absolute best friend who exists, and I don't understand half the things he says. But that's the whole point, is that we all get involved in some way or another over the course of our lives in specific fields or areas of concentration or expertise. And the awesome thing about this platform is it allows everybody to have a fun time disseminating that information in a way that is enjoyable both for them and for the audience. That's why YouTube is popular. That's why YouTube content creators are popular, not because they're spreading alt-right vile information, as this sort of report, insists. It's because people are interested in this kind of stuff, and it's not being shared anywhere else. People want to have and to see others who are knowledgeable and insightful disseminate and help promote information they otherwise would probably not be privy to.
Right. And I want to point out, like, what I do, they hire all sorts of commentators, legal commentators on mainstream media. You can get legal opinions from them. The problem with them is they're frequently wrong or incomplete for a couple reasons. YouTube will allow me to
read through the whole document. Yeah.
Right. For 3 hours, if you want to torture yourself for 3 straight hours, you can read through a document, and I can break down all sorts of things, and I can bring in citations. A guy on the news, the best example was Obamacare. Obamacare passed. It's a 120-page decision if you count the concurring and dissenting opinions, and they hand it to a guy, and they say, "We're going live on this in 30 minutes." Right?
Exactly.
Like, what's he supposed to do? And so the initial reports about Obamacare left out they all focused on the ruling on the individual mandate that Roberts gave, but they all left out Roberts refusing to extend the Commerce Clause and protecting the states' rights a little bit. Not enough, but a little bit later on in the opinion, because they just didn't have time to do it. So that's what YouTube gives for people in my position, people in your position, Aiden, where you're going through like complex social science issues. They just take time to get through, and nowhere else has it, because it costs so much to get 30 minutes on a CNN or a Fox or even like the Oprah Winfrey Network or whatever.
Yeah, even to get 5 minutes is difficult for anybody, but to say 30 minutes to go actually through something that's 30 minutes to go through Obamacare, even that would be like, oh, well, we can give kind of some cliff notes.
Well,
Right.
here's what's interesting is that the piece that started this live stream, right, is basically targeting us, but we are providing something that is needed to a certain segment of the population, and not an insignificant segment of the population. We're talking hundreds of thousands of viewers, right? Some of our more popular posts have gotten 250,000, 500,000 views, and some other channels have gone over 1 million views on things that are relatively esoteric, right? Now, if you strip away the ability for people to hear that, it's just going to drive it underground and make the voices more influential. Because quite frankly, there are a lot of people who pay more attention to Alex Jones now that he's been banned than before.
I used to think that. I'm not sure anymore, Coach. I have always, my entire YouTube career and most of my life, knowing everything I know about social science, adhered to a very well-supported theory, which is psychological reactance.
Right.
Don't push the big red button. What do you want to do more than anything is push the big red button. Anytime you tell someone they can't do something, that is exactly what they want to do. This is actually an inherent, this is such a core aspect of human nature that we cannot escape from it. But the problem is that when you completely deperson someone, and I'm not saying deplatforming, because what happened to Alex Jones is not just deplatforming.
Yeah,
it's depersoning. He can no longer even exist. I believe he has been fundamentally denied his First Amendment rights in some instances. In this case, I don't know. It's not so clear, but these are the frontiers of de
facto he has. I mean, perhaps Nick can speak about the legality of it, but as a practical matter, he's
been depersoned.
He's
regardless,
been depersoned, and he has been. It's basically he's been gulagged. You know,
what are we going
First
to
Amendment
do?
was thrown out.
But I think you're overlooking the fact that while he's in the gulag, he can say whatever he wants in his quiet cement room all by himself. So he has the freedom of speech, right?
Oh, he's got all the freedom of speech, right?
Yeah, sure. I've literally had people make the argument that in totalitarian governments, people had free speech. It's just the consequence of that speech was a bullet.
Yeah, sure. Well, I heard the other argument. The other argument was that Goebbels and Stalin and Hitler were all in favor of free speech, just the free speech that they liked. It was the free speech that they didn't. That was the one that got in trouble. Yeah, I mean, like, what the fuck, right?
Well, but that's how that works a little bit. It's absurd to me. My fear, though, is that I used to ascribe entirely to that position that yes, it and I've made this argument many, many times in videos I've done and on live streams, that if you drive somebody underground, it makes them more attractive. It's the Barbra Streisand effect, it's psychological reactance, whatever you want to call it. However, we are looking at a new, again, frontier of information. The current information network of human society is not what it was even 10 years ago. The mainstream news is not the primary place in which most people get their news. Most people get their news online, which means that if you do not have an ability to spread your information and to connect yourself online through these very general and basic formats, you don't exist. You do not have an access to public speech. And this is their goal. This is the goal of articles like this, is to ensure that we do not have access to it. Because if they can unperson all of us, their plan, I'm not saying it's going to be a successful one, but their plan is that if they unperson all of us, we won't exist. And right now, I'm sorry, it's true. Alex Jones does not have the viewership he had when he was on YouTube. Yes, people are interested in him right this second because of his deplatforming, but that will drop down as personal hype decreases.
Fades into the rearview mirror. Yeah, people forget. That's
and nature. Then no one will remember Alex Jones as he is effectively, depersoned.
Yeah, and even if every single subscriber to Alex Jones's YouTube channel went to InfoWars every day to watch his video, he has no expandability outside of literal word of mouth. And on the internet, word of mouth doesn't cut it anymore. It's not the same. If people can't talk about you on major platforms and provide people a quick way to get to you, they're not going to get to you. Yeah, it's the nature of just, I don't know if it's human laziness or what, but there's an easier.
Nick,
it's not pejorative.
The algorithms on Facebook and YouTube that are either outright censoring any reference to Alex Jones or kicking it way down low insofar as the recommendations go. And so the only people who only the very biggest names who broadcast a link to Alex Jones will be picked up. Everybody else will just get shuffled off, into the dark corners of Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. People just don't see it because the algorithm. The algorithm has been told to ignore Alex Jones or deprioritize it or whatever the term of art they use to basically unperson the guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
and I agree. And what I was saying is that if so the algorithms push it down. So even if even if we're talking word of mouth networking, because if you got 1 million people talking about you, that's a good thing. And I mean literally interpersonal, not necessarily online. But I'll liken it back to a story where I was telling one of my friends. When I had first started my YouTube channel, he's like, "Oh, well, give me some cards or something that I can hand to people." I'm like, "What? With like a hyperlink on them? What do you want?"
Right.
It was a fundamental misunderstanding of how networking happens online and in the modern age, because there's and this guy isn't like some technological rube. It was just his mindset was back in, well, you network by talking to people you know and handing out their card.
I've had that exact conversation, dude. Like, where's your card? Like, with what? Like a QR code on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hit me up on Twitter, homie. But there's one thing that we've kind of been talking about, and I wanted, Aiden, if I could get your opinion. It's back to this paper. To me, it looks like this paper is written with a heavy dose of projection, right? Because the whole idea is that everyone who's the subject of this paper has this ability to immediately convert their audience, and it's written from the narrative of the mainstream media, and we know that that's their job, right? Like, and that's to me, it looks like a full-scale projection. They think that because for the past 40, 50 years, they have been in the business of molding the minds of America, that people come out and that they must be converting people and then enlisting them, rather than the idea that these people already just kind of at least somewhat agreed prior to subscription. Like, because I think it's maybe because she's an academic, and this is not a slight on all academics, just her, but who has no idea how business works. She doesn't
understand what she's talking about either. To me, I'm very, very, I don't want to be rude. So I'm remiss to say she doesn't know what she's talking about, because I also don't think that that's likely. I think the most likely scenario is she's lying.
Sure.
Because I don't want to insult her intelligence. So she would know that agenda setting theory does not. She would know that agenda setting theory does not imply changes of behavior or belief or attitude, only of the concepts and topics du jour. That's all that it means. To me, this entire thing is at best and maybe most nice. My maximalization of my propriety towards niceness here. She doesn't understand agenda setting theory, which she should understand. And at worst, it is, yes, just lies, because that's not how any of this functions. The media tells people what to think about. However, 100 years of data, research, extensive analysis have found no such existence of a hypodermic needle effect, have found nothing that even approaches it. Watching the media does not affect what you think. It affects what you think about. That's it. The mean world hypothesis and cultivation theory, all that they are, and all that those two things suggest, is that one, when people watch a lot of news, that is the news primarily concerned with violence, they tend to, if they do it over and over and over repeatedly, think that the world is more violent than it generally is. That's it. That's the only real effect we've found. And even then, at this level of about 0.3 to 0.4% correlation at the use of extensive and extreme users. That is it. This kind of, someone can inject your brain with their alt-right scary ideas is ridiculous on every level. It is not supported by scientific data at all. I've never seen a study that even approaches it. And in fact,
what I find weird about the whole thing is that she refuses to accept the fact that the quote unquote alternative influencers are responding to the audience, not the other way around. That's the thing that I find just weird, because she doesn't. She's coming from a top-down mentality whereby, there's the the institution, and the institution gives what's the name? Not accreditation. Gives support to the people, not the other way around. It's profoundly undemocratic, is what I'm trying to say. That she looks at the process from the top down, and she is part of the top institution, and she doesn't like the fact that the alternative influencers are bottom up people. That's my takeaway. I was just deeply disappointed by this whole thing, and it just seemed totalitarian. That's the word, because it felt like a suck up to a totalitarian regime. You know, that's what I thought that her report sounded like. That she was trying to ultimately look. I mean, we've gotten to the end of it. I was actually hoping during this whole conversation that I'd get an email from her or some kind of tweet from her, acknowledging the tweets I'd sent her or the emails I sent her, or her organization to come on the stream. But, you know, we've gone 2.5 hours. It's not going to happen. And so, you know, fuck it. I'm never going to deal with a woman. And so screw that. She struck me as the good little Nazi. You know, the ultimate irony. She struck me as the good little Nazi, the little Soviet young pioneer kind of person who's just like yes sirring and creating the report that her betters, her superiors want her to say or to write rather. And it's just a hit list. It's just a hit list. That's what it is. And you know, I find it funny on the one hand, but on the other hand, I find it just deeply disturbing. My name is right there in the middle of that fucking web, right? And I'm like, this is idiotic because they're just fucking YouTube videos. This is a fucking hobby, right?
Well,
and on the other hand, though, of course, hang on, I'm not so naive as to not realize it's a very very influential hobby. That
I think
the thing is, what happens is that we articulate things that so many people are thinking, that so many people are unhappy with in our current society. And the thing is, see, when you are able to articulate a problem, that's the first step to a solution to that problem. And I think that might be the fear of these people, because they recognize. How can I put it? I've always noticed that people are afraid of others when they feel unconfident, when they feel that they can lose, and that's why they try to suppress them. When they are not confident in their own positions. That's why whenever I try, I mean, today, as a matter of fact, I had a long Twitter exchange with some guy, Innuendo Productions or some shit like that, some lefty guy, and I was trying to get him to be on a stream and to talk about his ideas and to, you know, a back and forth about it. And it was just this long exchange, and he had no intention whatsoever, because I think that fundamentally they don't have any confidence in their ideas, and that's why they are so hell bent for leather on suppressing the alternative influencers, because they do not have the self-confidence in their ideas, and we do. And I think that that's why they hate us. Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry for ranting. So I ranted,
No,
and
you're
I promised
completely-
myself I wasn't going to. But you see
How
what I'm saying?
dare you on your own channel?
I'm just like I'm slapping myself as we speak.
No, and I think you're completely correct on a lot of that. Yeah, people are definitely headed in. I can see a lot of what you're saying. Yeah.
You're muted, Coach.
Shit. Sorry about that. Listen, we've been going on for 2.5 hours. It's been a delightful conversation, but I think that we've tried the patience of our listeners. So I'm going to wind it down. I just want to thank my guests, Black Pigeon Speaks, the Distributist, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, and Aidan Paladin for having joined me in this lovely conversation that's gone a little bit all over the place. But I think that we pretty much, covered the things that we wanted to cover. I want to ask my two remaining guests if you have any final points that you would like to make. Please be so kind. Either one of you, whenever you want.
I guess just
you go.
You go ahead, Nick.
No,
Okay.
you go.
All right. Okay. Now you. Look, this article or paper report, whatever you want to call it, it's not science. It's ridiculous. It means nothing scientifically. It will be used as such, which is awful. The whole point of this, though, is that this is bad science. And the fact that we were even streaming about it.
Can we call it what it was? Can we say that it's propaganda?
Yes, propaganda. Yes, I'm more than willing to say that. it will be disseminated, unfortunately. But all we can do is do exactly what we've done here in the stream, gone through exactly why it is propaganda, why it's bullshit, and why the people that she wants to be silenced. And I don't just mean the creators, I mean the audience, because that's who ultimately she really wants to be silenced, is the audience.
Yeah.
She doesn't want them to be able to have access to alternative ideas. And I mean any kind of alternative ideas, anything outside of CNN and anything funded by George Soros. That can't be allowed. We won't let that happen.
Yeah.
We're going to do what we can. Unfortunately, we the libertarian ideal doesn't work here because we can't invent our own
political.
visa.
We have to do political. Yeah.
We're going to have to do something. And I do not believe that it will that we will be able to be silenced. Ultimately, I think we do have recourse here. That's my only
Nick? Yeah. Nick?
Yeah, I will say, let me just go ahead and give a +1 to that. But then also say that expanding on the libertarian thing. Look, I'm basically a libertarian. My idea is maximize freedom wherever it goes. We don't have it. We don't have freedom to base these types of things off of. When you have an infrastructure network that's laid down with government funding, it's protected by government laws and regulations. It's regulated. When you have private companies who have been set up as de facto government organizations, largely without any sort of vote, but just because there was some pragmatic necessity at some point to give them undue power or to allow them to control some things, those things stick around forever because law moves slow and because the people who write it don't understand how to program a VCR yet. And the judges who rule on it have no idea. Just look at the case of the guy who was he was distributing Microsoft ISOs that you could download for free from Microsoft. They're not copyrighted works. They don't give you a copy of Windows. It's just an ISO for a recovery disk. He just put them on a CD and was giving them away for free. That guy's going to prison because a judge didn't understand that what he was doing wasn't giving people copies of Windows. So we have to push back against this stuff. We can't keep saying that it's just the free market and you're free to associate because at some point you're not. And I'll point out one more thing. Roseanne tweeted out a long time ago this case, Alabama versus Marsh. And it's a fascinating case because we had corporate towns at one point where you lived in a town and that town was your boss. Like you might you might live in the Ford town.
Yeah.
And these companies said, no, this is our private property. So on the street, you can't say these certain things. Supreme Court stepped in and said, no, if you're functioning as a private, as the sole provider of everything, then no, you have to provide the same civil protections that the government would. Facebook, Twitter, they're not the exact same as a corporate town. Absolutely, there are differences. But the point is we have a history of protecting things even when a private entity is involved. And that can come back and needs to come back. And it's not going to come back if we're defeatist about it. So stop.
What decision was that? What Supreme Court decision was that?
It's Marsh versus Alabama. And
I don't know if
Marsh.
I don't know if you've done a show on that. That would be fucking interesting.
I'm working on it because I want to cover how we go about applying these things. So it's a combination of that and something called the limited public forum doctrine, which was touched on in Trump's Twitter case, where a judge said that Trump can't ban people or block people on Twitter. Is that basically they've recognized the fact that these social networks are ubiquitous and that they provide access to political speech, to commercial speech, to all of the most protected types of speech that we have, and that limiting them is extremely damaging because no one's listening to the guy on the side of the road on a soapbox anymore. Now they're listening to someone in the right. They're listening to someone who can just through ideas attract thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions of people to listen to them. Yeah. And if you take that away, you take away a critical element of speech. So please, from one libertarian to another, stop using that excuse. We don't have a free market. And if we did, it'd be a different argument, but we don't.
Yeah. Okay, so I've given Nick the final word here. It's been a pleasure having you all on, and yeah. So this is Coach Red Pill signing off. We will catch you next time. Take it easy.